clear indications of cartel involvement. More than 30,000 people are murdered every year in Mexico, which has one of the world's highest homicide rates. The opposition is calling for tougher action against the gangs, but President Claudia Sheinbaum, who was sworn in last week, has ruled out a return to the war on drugs of previous administrations. She says a security plan will focus on gathering intelligence on cartels and addressing the social causes of violence.
The top story this hour, ANC Deputy President Paul Mashatile says there are no quarrels within the GNU, contrary to what is being publicly portrayed. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
In sports this hour, Nigeria set to boycott AFCON qualifier in Libya, and Zindiso Pakati approaching Soweto Marathon title defense with caution. More details at 3:30.
Health experts say that taking care of your baby starts the day you learn you have conceived. Changes should start immediately, from what you eat to how you take care of yourself. After you've delivered your baby, does the worry stop? No, it doesn't. From there, it's clinic visits, breastfeeding, introducing solids, and the list goes on. If you're a mom, father, or caregiver and are curious on how to support your kids' development to reach their full potential, or even concerned about the nutrition that strengthens their bodies, then our new SABC Education feature, Side by Side, is for you. Get all the advice you need from the Department of Health by tuning in every Wednesday and Thursday at 2:30 p.m. on The Full Circle on SAFM, starting in October. Tune in to the feature and you could win 1,000 Rand with our monthly competition. Side by Side, brought to you by SABC Education on SAFM, leading the conversation.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices are making our kids sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, leading to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they get older. We need to protect our kids from all sugary drinks. Demand a stronger health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
I tell you what, it's a natural question, particularly after a weekend, but if not, even just every single day, which is, what are the big issues that are moving the National Pulse today? And I can think about a few. One is that ANC meetup about 100 days, celebrating 100 days of the GNU and the SACP, effectively a significant partner absent in that. That's certainly one of them. The other is still the ongoing reflections on the life of a significant person in South Africa. We're talking about the now late former Reserve Bank governor and Minister of Finance and Labour, Tito Mboweni. That continues, but also in the city of Joburg in particular and surrounds, the water crisis does not go away. In fact, you get a couple of days break or a couple of weeks break, and then it goes on once again. So those are big, big issues that certainly has an impact on the National Pulse. But clearly, that's my point. What about you? What do you think are the big issues that drives your pulse rate high today? Now, you can call in 086 000 2032. You can send us a voice note 0614 104 107. Love to hear from you. You can also text us. And often when people text, they always say where they are and send a picture too, so you can do that as well, right? So all those options are available, and you can also tweet and Facebook. Just tag us, SAFM Radio, and you can also tag me, Ashraf Garda. So all those things covered. How was your weekend? Did you have a great weekend? Again, many parts, I think the Western Cape's cooler, but many parts of the eastern parts of South Africa are particularly warm. It is hot. It is really, really hot. But talking about that sort of hot is one thing. We're going to kick off then with really the hot news around the African National Congress and celebrating 100 days of the GNU. So we now know that the South African Communist Party has snubbed an invitation from its alliance partner to celebrate the 100 days in the GNU with it. The Communist Party revealed this yesterday following a 3-day meeting at the Central Executive Committee. The meeting discussed the political, economic and social state of the country and resolved on various issues, including the basic income grant transformation of the Reserve Bank and expanded public employment, amongst others. Now, in many ways, maybe that would be interesting to see what that means with regards to the ANC itself, particularly with the ANC being in alliance with others as well now, and that's really what the GNU is all about. But let's stay with the significant point about them not attending a celebration of the GNU. Dr. Alex Mashilo is with me, the SACP Central Committee member. Appreciate your time, Dr. Mashilo. Thanks for joining us. You are now connected to the National Pulse.
Thank you very much. Greetings to you, to the producers and the listeners.
Thank you. So let's get this first right. 100 days of the GNU with your senior partner, the African National Congress, inviting other parties to it, and the SACP, your party, a significant absentee. Now, we know you're not going. How much thought went into that, and what ultimately decided that you will not attend?
Quite a lot of thought went into that. It was not an easy decision to make. If you look at the text of the statement you just cited now, it is densely populated with policy transformation issues. The fact is that since the elections in May, the Alliance never held a single session to discuss translating the manifesto commitment into a program for strategic direction for the government, whether in the 100 days of the new government or in the next 5 years. We also never held a single alliance political session to conduct a collective assessment of the 100 days of the government. Almost everything that happened outside the alliance joint consultative processes. Now, it is quite important for the entire alliance to walk the talk. When we went out to campaign, taking the manifesto for the 2024 elections, we said we can do more working together. The fact is the alliance has not worked together to inform any direction for the government in the last 100 years, in the last 100 days, or for the next period. So that is very important. It is crucial that we sit down and identify what should happen, come back to evaluate it. Having evaluated it and say, all of us now agree on the evaluation, let us go out on a public program. So that has not happened.
All right, let me come in then. You're saying that from an alliance point of view, and now there, it's an interesting one because there are two alliances. One is the alliance, the historical alliance between the ANC, the SACP, and COSATU. Then you have another alliance between what is the greater ANC and other political parties, as we're well aware of, right? In talks of the GNU. But in terms of your alliance, you're saying there's been no consultation, there's been no meeting of sort in 100 days. Why would that be the case? I mean, I do find it rather bizarre that would be the case.
Yeah, in the manifesto, we make a commitment to translate the manifesto into an implementation, monitoring, and evaluation plan. There were technical committee sessions. I serve on the technical committee. There were technical committee sessions to look at that. But those are not the political leadership of the alliance, which is responsible for elaborating a collective strategic leadership direction. So it would have been great for the alliance to have sat down and say, this is the program for the next 100 days, and to come back and say, let us evaluate government performance on that program.
All right, so I agree with you. I think we all agree that it makes complete sense. My question to you, therefore, is not, should they have met? Like, why has the alliance not met? And what does this say about the senior party in the alliance?
It is very difficult to speak on behalf of all the alliance partners regarding why has the alliance not met. There were efforts made for the alliance to sit down. One meeting after another would have been postponed. And as you know, following public developments, there were tensions in the alliance regarding the political direction following the May 2024 elections. We held an alliance secretariat and political council briefing sessions. Those were not meetings. They were just briefing sessions. The first one was looking at exploratory talks that the ANC had embarked upon. The second one was following up on those exploratory talks. It was an Alliance Political Council session. In both these two sessions, the SACP and COSATU tabled reasons why the movement must not pursue any coalition arrangements involving the DA. Mm-hmm. So as you know, finally the DA was involved and there were tensions regarding that.
Okay,
So,
I hear that now. I mean, certainly from your side, right? Your General Secretary, Solly Mapaila, I'm quoting him directly, saying, we have rejected the invitation. It feels sad, but we will not be going, right? On the other hand, the ANC Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, saying this is not a celebration, but a reflection. And then also making the point that the SACP's absence represents a missed opportunity to make these reflections alongside other alliance partners. Somehow between the two, I mean, it seems like you're on two different roads and yet you're alliance partners.
reflections in the alliance happen through political processes led by the Alliance Secretariat and consolidated by the Alliance Political Council. There were no reflections on 100 days by the Alliance Secretariat and the Alliance Political Council. Now, you don't call a MAD meeting and expect speeches on the reflections, because we will arrive there and contradict what you are to say when you didn't expect that. So political reflections, if I may give an example, when we developed the manifesto for the 2024 elections, we had a manifesto technical team that was meeting consistently, reporting to the Alliance Secretariat and reporting to the Alliance Political Council for reflections. Once that was done, there were meetings of the ANC National Executive Committee where alliance partners were invited to participate. We followed a collective process of reflections to a point where when we convened the first rally in KwaZulu-Natal province at Moses Mabhida Stadium, we knew that we had a document that we all went through. At this moment, there is nothing that we all went
So let me just push you, because we don't have enough time, unfortunately, right? So let's look at the reality. Clearly, you have a different policy position to the African National Congress with regard to the Government of National Unity. We all know that, right? And that's why you're not there, and that's why certainly Solly Mapaila, and I've chatted to him often, has been very critical of the GNU, very, very public about it, right? Now, moving forward, what does this say about the ANC-SACP alliance in particular? Because I'm going to suggest that it's rather broken, and it's going to take something rather dramatic, or a dramatic shift, for you to be seen as one going down the lane.
It will be difficult to dismiss your view from outside the alliance. And obviously, we are not looking at the alliance from a common angle. We are looking at it ourselves from inside it. We want to fix this alliance to work. It is not the first time the alliance experiences the situation that we face now. We went through major periods of differences on gear growth, employment and redistribution, which the SACP and COSATU characterized as a neoliberal policy. We have went through other periods. So
okay, let me ask you this very quickly. One quick question. We need to wrap up, right? What would it take? A quick answer. What would it take now for you to fix the SACP-ANC alliance? Very quickly.
We need to come together and get to the root of the matter, discuss that, and emerge with a common agreement on the way forward. And we must work together in the two sense of the way, not one alliance partner doing things alone and expecting others to attend celebration.
And that's where we leave it. That's where we leave it. Dr. Alex Mashilo, appreciate your time from the SACP.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the Tooth Fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does every electrical company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
The Warriors and the Brave Warriors want to demonstrate who are the real warriors when they meet at the battlefield in search of vital 3 points. This is the Southern African derby of the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the thrilling journey to Morocco, Zimbabwe versus Namibia on Monday 14 October at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said...
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed Dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, Baye!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, maybe that's the significant part of that last comment from Dr. Alex Mashilo on the SACP. What will it take to get the ANC and the SACP to be working together or on the same track? We need to get to the root of the matter. And the big question is, there's not enough time to answer that question, but what for you would be the root of the matter regarding the ANC and the SACP? I mean, just think about it, because I'm just thinking it's open to so many different interpretations. What for you is the root of the matter that will get those two alliance partners to seriously act as if they are genuinely alliance partners, which is not the case at this point in time, right? Okay, let's move on to other issues. And I welcome your thoughts, by the way. 086 000 2032. You know that you have a view. You certainly know where to air it. I have a point. You have your point as well. Well, let's move on to the Global Watch now. The UK's Foreign Secretary David Lammy is expected to visit China this week. This as the new Labour government, that's the British Labour government, intends to improve relations with Beijing after they deteriorated under the Conservatives. Now, Lammy's visit comes even as significant disagreements on trade remains between China and the European Union. So to help us understand the implications of this visit is Musa Mdunge, who's a political analyst and PhD candidate at the University of Dundee. Musa, I appreciate your time as always. You're connected now to the National Pulse.
Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon to you and to the listeners.
Thank you. I got as far as London last week, but not Dundee. I mean, that's just too far north, so maybe some other time, right? Appreciate your time. Let's talk about the significance of this trip of the UK Foreign Secretary getting as far as China.
Well, the visit by Dave Lemmy, as is expected, is going to be quite a consequential moment for the United Kingdom. This Labour government, which entered power following the elections, has vowed almost to do somewhat of a reset, a recalibration of relationship with China, which has been frosty under the previous conservative governments, where there have been challenges and tensions around Taiwan, challenges around China's, its move in terms of trade and the competition that it poses to British companies as well, but also the manner in which British companies are able to access the Chinese market and are able to compete. And that is why a part of this meeting that he is scheduled to have in China, he'll be meeting with British business leaders who have operations from Shanghai. And that will be key in order to connect the domestic economic goals of the Labour government with its foreign policy and trade policy at large.
So you're saying it's very much an economic meeting as opposed to a political meeting, or in many ways do they overlap?
There is certainly a level in which they overlap. These two countries, of course, are both permanent members of the United Nations, so they too will be seized with matters such as Ukraine, Russia, such as what is happening in Palestine and in Lebanon, but as well as rising tensions in the Pacific, which I believe are perhaps the looming geopolitical challenge of the world that is not getting the kind of focus as we see happening with issues around the Middle East. And the United Kingdom sees itself as playing a strategic role, particularly in times where there are tensions between the European Union and China. But also for the United Kingdom, it's answering greater existential questions about its own position in the globe at a time when it has since left the EU. What is its value proposition to its partners across the Atlantic in Washington, D.C.? And so perhaps it is looking to play the role of a bridge builder between both Washington and Beijing, and in doing that, perhaps get some economic benefits for itself.
I mean, do you see that happening? That the economic benefits for itself will accrue to the UK while still being seen as a bridge builder? And if they're a bridge builder, then why can't the USA be a bridge builder themselves?
That is the problem, right? Is in many ways their ability to play an effective role in this instance will rely on who then takes over the reins in Washington, D.C. and whether that will be Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. And depending on who wins that election, that will then determine the kind of posture that Downing Street will need to take in terms of its role in international affairs, including how it sees its relationship with China. What it cannot do, of course, is ignore the fact that China is the second largest economy. They can't ignore the importance of China in the global value system and chain. And in that sense, there needs to be really a coming together of all of these sides. Whether Keir Starmer and his government are the right people to do this and meet this moment, time will tell.
So two things very quickly. One is, I understand, in the context of this conversation, there's also been this planned EU 45% tariff being considered with regard to the import of electronic vehicles from China. And the other is that you've now had a first situation with the new Labour government of the First Minister now going to visit the EU or vice versa as post-Brexit, which alone is also significant. Your thoughts on that?
Well, certainly, that is posing a challenge for China, and we see with the kind of statements that Donald Trump is also making that certainly as it regards to tariffs, that is likely going to be a pattern that we will continue to see even as it pertains to the European Union. But this is where the opportunity lies for the United Kingdom as it pertains to this issue, is that in many ways the UK is looking to expand, develop new industries, and so it could perhaps be a launching pad for many of China's electric vehicle companies to then set up house in terms of production and manufacturing to go around the challenge of those tariffs. So there are ways around these things, and perhaps the United Kingdom becomes an option for China. But the problem is this: they're no longer in the European Union. They're no longer in a single market. What value can they then present to China in getting around this particular challenge?
Okay, maybe don't answer this one. Let's leave it at that. But Matt, I wonder whether it's on the agenda for the Brexit, the UK Brexit campaign now to have a UK entry to Europe once again. Whether that referendum will ever gain momentum in the light of what has happened since Brexit. Let's have that conversation some other time. Appreciate you giving of your thoughts as always. And that is Musa Mdunge, who's a political analyst and PhD candidate at the University of Dundee. Let's get the news headlines now. Here's Madupi. It's 3:30.
Thank you very much, Mr. G, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines, the neighbors of the man who allegedly shot and killed 7 people at an informal settlement in Orange Farm, south of Joburg, before turning the gun on himself, say they were awoken by the frightening sound of repeated shooting. ANC Deputy President Paul Mashatile says there are no quarrels within the GNU, contrary to what is being publicly portrayed. And Gaza's health ministry says more than 60 people have been killed by Israeli strikes in the last 24 hours. Details of these and other stories, 4 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N4 westbound in Pretoria is where a tanker fire is reported just west of Ga-Rankuwa exit, and you're asked to expect delays due to road closure. The M1 northbound has a crash reported near Woodmead Drive. Winnie Mandela Drive northbound in Bryanston has delays towards Dover Road, and Christian de Wet Road southbound in Honeydew has delays towards Dolphin Street. In KZN on the N3, there's roadworks with traffic restrictions near the Escort Ultra City services. Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park, and traffic lights are working at the intersection of the M7 St. John's Avenue and the M13 highway in Pinetown. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Kromboom Road exit, Lisbeth Parkway southbound slow moving towards the N2 highway, and Bowood Road is where a fallen tree is reported on Newlands Road, so expect delays and diversions. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, Tumi, you were talking Bafana 5-0 the other day, and there's another game coming up soon.
There's another game coming up as early as tomorrow, and Bafana head coach Hugo Bruce says that he knows that the upcoming 2025 AFCON qualifier against Congo-Brazzaville will be far from easy. This is despite their 5-0 win in Gqeberha just days ago, with Bafana sitting second in Group K and level on 7 points with Uganda. A win against Congo in Brazzaville will book their qualification for next year's tournament in Morocco with 2 games to spare, and the Belgian tactician is keen to ensure that his team remains fully focused on the task at hand, knowing that Congo will be eager to make amends for their heavy defeat in South Africa. Still staying with football, as early as this week, Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture Gayton McKenzie says that they're moving ahead together with the South African Football Association and its special member, the PSL, on the implementation of a video assistant referee in South Africa. Now, McKenzie revealed that as a government, they are ready to put down a deposit through sponsors to pay towards the VAR.
Yeah, I'm a man of timelines. It's very expensive. The president of SAFA is right. And we can't have SAFA alone carry the bill. You know, soccer makes all of us happy. This is a national team. We as government are willing, the government of national unity will definitely put in the bulk of that money together with sponsorships, together with SAFA themselves, and together with people that love football. We want our football to become better, and VAR can make it better. And our timelines is next week we are meeting. After that meeting, I do my atamai.
And you had said that because South Africa is a big country, not only in the region, but also on the continent. So it must be amongst those who are leading in that space.
No, 100%. We have no time to play here. We must lead the space, and we are leading the space. And next week, as I said to you, we are meeting SAFA. After next week, we are paying the first deposit. We are moving.
Okay. Tell me about this. So, I mean, there's really 2 parts to it. One is to VAR or not to VAR, right?
And I mean,
and the second
calls.
part is the position of the Minister of Sport.
Yeah, there have been calls for VAR to come in the country, to be specific, because obviously there's some decisions that a lot of people feel like have been too controversial, and perhaps if VAR was there, it would assist, because they're not really taking the place of a referee, but to assist the ref to see maybe those spots that they don't see. And in terms of how much it will cost, I think I heard it was more or less 70 to 80 million rand. So it is a lot of money, and with the Minister of Sports saying that they have a sponsor, perhaps we might just see it soon.
Well, I mean, can you just imagine it? VAR brought to you by Specsavers, something along that line. I mean, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? Yeah. But I mean, the greater issue is like, VAR is not perfect. We know that, right? But the way the world has moved, you can't now retract. You have to perfect it and move, and it's being done better at, for example, Champions League than English Premier League, for example. You can't move. There he's right. But do you think he's correct about the point that we must embrace it with pace? Because, I mean, that's really what he's suggesting, right?
Yeah, he definitely is. I think for me, what came out from him saying that, why is it that still now we don't have VAR in the country when we are such a developed country, especially when it comes to football in Africa? So let's just wait and see.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he's right about that. Why not? We could also say, why don't we have a fully professional women's league and, all those type of things. But he's asking the right questions, and I'll give him due for that. Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see if it will actually come through as early as next year. But still staying with football, Nigeria's players say that they will boycott their 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier in Libya tomorrow after being stranded at an airport overnight. The Super Eagles squad were due to land in Benghazi yesterday, but their plane was instead diverted to Al Barak, which is about 230 kilometers away from their intended destination. And a Nigeria Football Federation official said that the traveling contingent were completely abandoned and then locked inside the airport building after making arrangements to leave. And I mean, on X, we could just see these players sleeping in the airport. How that happened, I really don't know. But the Libyan Football Federation has denied suggestions of foul play, and will definitely keep you up to date with this developing story. In rugby, former Wales and British Lions centre Jonathan Davies has announced his retirement, bringing the curtain down on a stellar career which brought 96 caps and 2 Six Nations Grand Slams. Davies left Welsh side Scarlets at the end of last season, having scored 55 tries in 2 spells with the region, as well as a distinguished Wales career which saw him play in 2 World Cups. Davies toured twice with the British and Irish Lion in 2013 to Australia and 2017 to New Zealand. Then in marathon news, Soweto Marathon defending champion Ncindiso Mpakati says that he's keeping his expectations in check as he prepares to defend his title in the upcoming race on the 3rd of November. The 34-year-old, who runs for the Injinga Running Club, is focused on avoiding unnecessary pressure in the final weeks leading up to the 42.2 kilometer event.
I have got enough time to prepare the race, because I think I just started just the middle of July. So I think everything is on the right track. And later September, on the 28th of September, I was in Klepstop. I was just to check. Is it my preparation? Everything is on a good on a right track. I ran 21 Ks 104. So that was a good result for me. Hence, I'm looking forward to see. I might have another chance to run well in this race, but I can just say I'm not promising anyone to win the race at the moment.
Well, on the note, is a wrap from myself for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Tell you what, we must talk about that Libya-Nigeria issue. And,
Sure.
and I see contradictions in that. Maybe in next bulletin, yeah.
Righty.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Sangwe Mnikati have a big game plan to secure victory against neighbors Mozambique. But the Mambas say nothing will stop them from collecting maximum points. This is the Southern African derby of the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the exciting journey to Morocco, Eswatini versus Mozambique on Monday 14 October at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
My name is Michael Fontaine. I'm 16. I have difficulty paying attention in class, so I fell behind. That's why my parents moved me to UCT Online High School. I can't thank them enough. Their flexible learning means I can take classes when it suits me, so I get ahead and stay ahead. Visit uctonlinehighschool.com to learn more. Applications close 29 November 2024.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So it's been a strange last, well, not just 24 hours, more than that, because at a time on a Saturday evening when most people are sort of chilled off and relaxing, we got the news then of really the sad and very, very sudden passing of the former Minister of Finance, the former Minister of Labour, the former Governor of the Reserve Bank, Tito Mboweni. Now, I know there's been a whole range of different tributes, and many of them on this morning show certainly on the morning show, and you can listen to the podcast of many of those conversations, right? But we thought, let's do it rather differently with this one, and let's get the thoughts of Membatisi Ndladlana, who was the country's second Minister of Labour after Tito Mboweni. He was appointed then to the Reserve Bank, right? So we thought, let's get his perspective of what was then the former Minister of Labour. So Membatisi Ndladlana, appreciate your time and thanks for joining us on really what is a very, very sad period, a period of reflection for many of us.
Yeah, you're quite right, because Tito's death indeed came as a shock to a number of us, because I didn't even know that he has an illness of whatever nature, and suddenly you hear that he died of a short illness. I suppose these things happen as we age. I agree with those who say he was part of a rare breed of leaders within the African national comrades, because he's one of those comrades who were architects of the new South African, especially the labor law structures like NEDLEC, because I found him there, and they proudly shaped those policies that we currently have in the country.
You say he was sort of very much set apart compared to many of the other comrades within the ANC. What is it that did set him apart?
Well, I was laughing listening to Comrade Vavi the other day, and I was saying to myself when he was saying in many instances you talk to Tito, consult him, and you end up not agreeing with him, because Tito was tinged with some little bit of arrogance, if I may say it that way, because you would talk to him and think that he is actually listening to you and he will give in, but Tito is just another character. I remember an argument about shoes. When one journalist just picked on Tito's shoes, that they are big, and indeed they were big, and they're still big. And then he says to me, but are you going to fit in these shoes? And it was quite miraculous to me that he actually pointed at the shoes. And I looked at them, and I realized, damn, these shoes are huge. How am I going to fit in those shoes? Then I laughed, and I said, you know what? I never actually wore shoes because I used to wear my dad's shoes that were huge. And the trick was at the time just to put newspapers in front there so that at least the shoe can fit. And the disgraceful part was when you are going to play, because I used to like playing, you have to take off the shoes. And you know what other students would do, would then look at the shoes, smell them, and then they see the newspapers. Why are you putting newspapers? It's because the shoes can't fit. So I made that joke. I said, no, I will be able to do the work and just put newspapers in front of those shoes and move on.
Well, something unique there, absolutely. Let's talk about his role specifically in the labor space, right? And ignoring, as the Reserve Bank governor and in finance, right? How would you evaluate the contribution that he's made in the labor space?
Well, it is difficult, of course, but Tito, in as far as the ANC is concerned, he was my senior. I can gladly say that. Not by age, but by the fact that they were in the NEC. Those days we used to respect comrades who were in the National Executive Committee. And besides, the fact that they went to exile, and to some of us, it was like they learned a lot of things in exile, even more than us. Not all of us went to exile, by the way. I'm one of those who remained in the country in the dust here. But we respected those comrades because you could see the commitment, you could see their role in developing the policies of the African National Congress. Tito had a bit of arrogance sometimes, you think you've convinced him, and later you discover, I've done absolutely nothing. I still need to go back and convince this guy. But I didn't need him anyway, because I was appointed as a Minister of Labour in 1999 by President Mandela, and I had good leaders, with President Mandela and President Thabo Mbeki. Because I spent a lot of time with them. You can't believe that I was informed round about January, February that I'm going to be a Minister of Labour. And yet I was only officially appointed in July on the day of the birthday of Mandela as the
my
minister.
goodness, yeah, wow. Well, what about, in terms of Tito Mbowene's role in terms of labor reforms? I mean, what can you tell us? What stands out for you there?
Well, Tito was very particular and very professional, if you like. But I don't know if I can say this. One thing I used to observe about him, there was a little bit of being a coward, because sometimes you must face issues, and it's rough out there, especially in labor. It's not a laughing matter to be a minister of labor. I've been there for 12 years. It was quite difficult, and you have to tinge yourself with a bit of rough room also. Otherwise, you won't survive. I mean, I had guys like John Gomomo, Mbazima, and Vavi. Combine those and put them in one room. Oh my God!
I can just imagine. Therefore, upon reflection now, I mean, if you were to, describe Tito Mbowene's legacy, but just in just one line, what would you say?
Well, I would say Tito was a minister and a half, if you like, because I learned a lot from him, Utito. I thought he was very old because he had this white hair long time ago. I thought this guy is very old, and later I discovered that he's not as old as I am, and You know, some of us, as soon as you pick that up, you want to know immediately, when did he go to circumcision? And if he went to circumcision after you, then, damn, man, you quickly say to him, hey, my boy, be careful, respect me. But I'm telling you, Chief, we have lost a comrade there. We've lost a combatant. We've lost a cadre in Tito Mboweni. A man who would not hide his views. Tito would express himself. And if you don't like it, you don't like it.
Yeah. Well, look, let's leave it at that. I mean, as you've said, you know, he's not just a minister, he was a minister and a half. And I don't think anybody has put it like that. Tito Mboweni, a minister and a half, absolutely. Appreciate you giving off your time and really commiserations to all those who knew at this particularly sad period in South African activist and political history. So thank you for your time. Lambathisi Mdladlana, former Minister of Labour, talking about the minister who was a minister and a half.
Spring is in the air and it's almost time for SA Garden Day on Sunday 20 October. Celebrate your garden with a tea party, a luncheon or simply lying down with a good book. Invite friends, family or neighbours to appreciate your garden. Visit gardenday.co.za for ideas and inspiration. And remember to upload your flower crown selfie to social media, the ultimate Garden Day accessory. Mark your calendar. SA Garden Day, Sunday, 20 October.
This summer, we have extra large offers on Ford Ranger XL, XLT and Wildtrak from only $481,900 for a Ranger XL single cab 4x2. It's the extra large Ranger offer from only $481,900. Visit your nearest participating Ford dealer. Optional service plan included. While stocks last. T&Cs apply.
The Red Devils are well aware that the only way to find the path to the top is to ensure they triumph against Brentford.
And so close from Casemiro.
However, the visitors are confident that the Bees will be all over at Old Trafford.
West Ham struggling to get out of Mbeumo. They've done it again! Another goal inside the opening minute. How do they keep doing it?
This is the Premier League. Do not miss out on thrilling action between Manchester United FC and Brentford FC on Saturday 19 October at 3:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, we're going to take lots of people commenting about the SACP, I know that. And of course, others continue talking about the Minister and a half, Tito Mboweni. But feel free to comment on that, including the 100 days now of the ANC, celebrating, reflecting on the GNU, and Action SA having their own press briefing today. I mean, there's so many issues that drives the issues that moves the national pulse. So you can come up with your own thoughts about what for you are the big ones, but I think they're pretty obvious to me. Now, comments are welcome. You can WhatsApp us in terms of text or voice notes, 0614 104 107. I'll take them as soon as I can. Have not forgotten. I can tell you now, Keys reminding me about that. 086 000 2032 if you wish to call in. Let's, however, move on to another issue. The Public Service Commission briefed the media on the pulse of the Public Service Bulletin. Interesting, we talk about the pulse of the nation. Here's the pulse of the Public Service Bulletin, covering the period of April to June of this year. So, a few months in that, right? Well, today's briefing focused on governance matters and a whole lot more. Let's do this. Let's get more on that issue with the Commissioner at the Public Service Commission. That's Anele Koia. Appreciate your time and thanks for connecting to the pulse of the nation.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the listeners of SAFM.
Absolutely.
Firstly, let me apologize that I'm at the airport, so I might have a bit of a noise on my background.
No, you sound fine to me for now, right? Okay. So, pulse of the public service. How do you go about, determining what is the pulse, and what have you come out with?
Look, what we normally do on a quarterly basis, we report on the work that we have done as the Public Service Commission in line with our constitutional mandate. So for this particular quarter, the areas of focus were, one, we looked at we reflected on the successful implementation of our recommendation in KwaZulu-Natal. And we commended the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal for having implemented our recommendation on the reinstatement of the head of department who was suspended there.
Mm-hmm.
So and then we also looked in terms of the we also looked in terms of the micro-organization of the state, where we were looking basically on the role of the executive authorities and the role of the heads of department. So our reflection was based on the induction workshops that we conducted for the new members of the executive in conjunction with the National School of Government. We also looked at the issues of functional accommodation for government departments as part of enhancing service delivery. So those are the issues that we looked at in our pulse of the public service.
Okay.
Of the public service.
And in terms of looking into it, I mean, what have you determined?
Okay. One, the one of the HODs in KZN submitted a grievance that was informed by the refusal to give him or approve the marks that were allocated to him. So the moderation committee refused to allocate the marks that were and then they reduced the marks for him. And when he then tabled the grievance to the Public Service Commission, he was suspended. So we have to engage with the Premier, one, on the issue of the suspension, which has just been uplifted. And we also investigated the conduct of the Moderation Committee, where we found out that the Moderation Committee flouted the regulations in terms of the scoring of HOTs for performance management. So on the basis of that, then, we have also made those recommendations. Now the Premier is in the process of reversing that decision of the Moderation Committee. But the HOT, the suspension has already been uplifted and the HOT is back at work.
Okay, interesting. Anything else you'd like to share?
What we would like to share with the members of the public is to say that particularly because we also reflected on the state of crime and the killings that has happened in the past few weeks, we want to call on the members of the communities to cooperate with the police, work with them, give them any possible information, and we guarantee that the police will protect their names. They would be anonymous to the perpetrators of crime. Therefore, they would be safe. We want them to protect themselves by working in collaboration with the police. That's the appeal we are making as the Public Service Commission. We also appeal to the public servants to work diligently and make sure that they deliver services to the people.
And do you finally pronounce, when we talk about, because we talk about this daily on this show, we say, what is the national pulse? I mean, what's the pulse rate of the nation? So in many ways, our visions are very intertwined, right? When we talk about the pulse of the public service, right, and you present that bulletin, do you then come up with a scorecard and say, that's what our pulse rate is like right now, and it's going up or it's going down?
What we are doing, because the compliance by departments fluctuates. Sometimes there is improvement, sometimes there is regression. For example, if you look in terms of the payment of service providers, this from the second quarter, there was a regression in terms of the payment of service providers. However, we are following that matter because we want to push and make sure that there is consequence management to those people who delay the payment of service providers and they go beyond 30 days that is prescribed in the Public Finance Management Act as well as in the Treasury Regulation.
Okay, that's where we shall leave it to Aneri Koia, the Commissioner at the Public Service Commission. I appreciate your time. That in revealing the pulse of the Public Service Bulletin put together there by the Public Service Commission. Right. There's a couple of questions. I'll read those comments just now. But no, let me get to the news first. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Madupi.
much, Ashraf. The top stories this hour. Family shocked over witnessing the Orange Farm mass shooting, and Mashatile reflects on 100 days of the GNU. A very good afternoon. The families of the 7 people shot and killed at Orange Farm, south of Joburg, say they are struggling to forgive the perpetrators. 5 members of a family, a neighbor and a friend were shot dead in the early hours of yesterday morning. The incident is alleged to have been sparked by a fight between a tavern owner and a male patron. The tavern owner allegedly followed the male patron, who was a visitor at a nearby house, and on arrival fired shots and killed 7 people, including a 3-year-old child. He later turned the gun on himself. Family member Lorraine Maisha.
Even when we try to sleep, we are unable to sleep. I still see this man who shot people as I watched. Each time I close my eyes, I still see them all laying helplessly. Even the bullet holes on the shack, all I see is him. I hate him. I don't want to lie. I hate him.
The neighbors of the man who fired the shots say they were awoken by the frightening sound of repeated gunfire. One person says that the initial thought was that the local petrol station was being robbed again. ANC Deputy President Paul Mashatile says there are no quarrels within the GNU, contrary to what is being publicly portrayed. This as Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has been at loggerheads with DA Federal Chair Helen Zille over the ANC's refusal to work with the DA in Gauteng. The GNU is marking 100 days since the constituting of the 7th administration in June. Mashatile says the ANC in Gauteng told them that the DA is making it difficult for them to form a government and were therefore instructed to leave them behind.
So the issues about tensions really don't exist. With Helen Zille and Panyaza, well, I'm sure they will resolve those issues. As far as we are concerned, we said to the government of Gauteng, led by the ANC, if the DA doesn't want to work with you in Gauteng, leave them behind. It's not your problem. And they must not make it our problem nationally, because we are working well with them nationally. It's up to the DA to make sure they work well with our structures in the provinces.
Digitization in the courts has been a prominent feature in the October leg of the JSC interviews. Candidates have raised concerns over the matter, including the acting Deputy Judge President of the Western Cape High Court, Andre Lechrantsi. He is one of 7 candidates vying for the position of Judge President of the division. Asked on what medium-term changes he plans to implement in the bench, this is what he had to say.
Our court currently functions on paper. So if you want to file a document, you must file it at what we call Room 1. Our storage facility is limited. We don't have sufficient storage facilities anymore for those files that's there. So from that perspective, what is the solution? Case on lines. And that is the answer. So we can go electronically. The attorneys and the public can file it electronically. It will assist on more than one level.
And Gaza's health ministry says more than 60 people have been killed by Israeli strikes over the last 24 hours. Israel says it is targeting Hamas fighters. 10 were killed and dozens wounded at a food distribution center in the Jabalia refugee camp in the north. The UN has warned that escalating violence is having a disastrous impact on food supplies in northern Gaza, with no aid having reached the region for 2 weeks. The BBC's Yolanda Nell has more.
As Israel continues fighting on multiple fronts, Palestinian medics say that tank fire and a drone targeted people gathering for food handouts in Jabalia in northern Gaza. Women and children are among the casualties, they say. The Israeli military says it's looking into the reports. It previously said that it sent troops back to the area to root out Hamas fighters.
The top story this hour, the families of the 7 people shot and killed at Orange Farm on the south of Joburg say they are struggling to forgive the perpetrators. For SAFM News,
in sports this hour, Royal AM appeal dismissed by a court of arbitration for sport, and the weight game continues for the Proteas women. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg, slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The M1 northbound has a crash reported near Woodmead Drive. The N1 southbound in Midrand has a stationary vehicle reported at Buccleuch Interchange. Eskom Patleli Drive northbound in Pretoria has delays towards Moot Street in Sandton. Sandton Drive westbound, slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive, and Grayston Drive eastbound, queuing at Linden Street. In KZN, the N11 has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions north of Ladysmith, and Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. Bakenkrag Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. Voortrekker Road eastbound slow moving through Maitland, and Main Road southbound in Claremont is slow moving towards Kenilworth Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said,
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed Dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, Bayede!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
The Zebras have a mission to impress the citizens of Botswana by outshining Cape Verde. But the Blue Sharks believe they can swim in any circumstances. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the incredible journey to Morocco, Botswana versus Cape Verde on Tuesday, 15 October at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So what's moving the National Pulse today? Here's a question or a comment regarding the conversation I had about the later Tito Mboweni with member TC Mdladlana, saying, Ashraf, what an honest someone. That's how people should do when you know more. Honesty, and that comes from Yazonda, right? And there are other comments too. I'll pick out certainly some of the voice notes as well. But in terms of text comments, Ashraf, now Malema sings a very different tune with these Limpopian politicians. Make no mistake, Tito was a very good person. Too clever for Malema's ilk. From Alex in Standerton. I mean, that's just one thing. We should be chatting to the team from Rand Water. I'll tell you what we'll do. While we try and connect to them around some of the problems in Gauteng province, let me get some of your voice notes. One of them is around the SACP.
Afternoon, Ashraf. How are you, Mafuta? I think, Ashraf, the SACP has a point. I think they stand with the fact that the DA partnering with the ANC in government is not going to take this country forward. And one thing for sure, Ashraf, I think if you meet someone who is hungry in the street, he or she can take anything that you can give him or her, but that doesn't mean that will sustain that person for good. The SACP's point is that the ANC has faltered in doing business with the DA because the DA's main policy is to maintain the status quo of whites in this country, owning everything but ignoring true reforms to include blacks in the economy, Ashraf.
All right. Well, I mean, interesting you say so, but the question is, like, I think that the one point is obvious. Like, how can there be there's clearly a breakdown between the African National Congress and the SACP. I mean, even nobody's denying that. The question is, they haven't even met up at all. In the meantime, they also differ fundamentally. I'm only asking the question, what does it take to get it right? Never mind about who's right, how do they get it right, okay? Well, what about the GNU?
Good SFM and listeners. Ashraf, under GNU, there is no gravy train for the comrades. That's why you feel the likes of Lusofi, Gauteng, and SCCP. They're no longer now like walking along with the ANC. There is no gravy train. The GNU is stopping all those debts. It's Sunny Levice in Cape Town. Thank you very much.
Well, it's early days to say there's no gravy train. Okay, you are implying there was a gravy train before. I mean, I hear that. There's another comment on the GNU.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good speaking here in Kala, Eastern Cape. Hey, Ashraf, let's congratulate how the GNU is working. It's doing wonders now, bit by bit. Look how the drug mules are being captured, and they are being surveilled wherever they go now. Seems as if South Africa is coming to what we wanted to be in the past 30 years. Unlike what we have shown since 1994 up to the 2023. But now we're starting to see how this country should really be. Thanks, Ashraf. Great here in Kala.
Okay, thank you so much. Right, okay, we are struggling for now to connect with the spokesperson for Rand Water, and that's Makenosi Maru, but we'll certainly try and connect as soon as we can. In the meantime, there are certainly lots of people wanting to comment about many things. Of course, one of them is about the VAR issue we discussed.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and Dumi. I'm very happy that finally VAR will be introduced in South African football. We've been calling for the introduction of VAR for a long time. And thanks a lot to the minister for his effort to intervene and make it possible. Sotisinolo and Mafefele Mpopo.
Well, I tell you what, okay, let's agree on this. It doesn't mean that there's going to be VAR. There won't be controversies. There are controversies around VAR in Europe, in England. We see that in many of the countries that has VAR. But I do agree it's a step in the right direction. I mean, rugby effectively has got a VAR, so has cricket, and it works. So where there are problems, you try and, address the problems and fix up how the VAR is interpreted, but the principle is correct. And I think, yes, in this case, I've also been critical of some aspects of the minister, Gayton McKenzie, but in this case here, I think absolutely he is spot on about hey, we South Africa, man. And I think we need to think with that winning champion nation attitude.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Mr. Suleiman. Ashraf, GNU, Government of National Unity, ends with the word unity. If all our human beings' needs are the same, all human beings' needs are the same, why should there be an argument? Why not implement service delivery, lights, water, health service, education is the basic needs. Can they not get that right? They're going to be bickering over the next 5 years. We need to know. They need to show us evidence. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, well, let's see where that bickering goes. Here's another one. No, in fact, what we'll do, we'll play that just now. Let's get to some of... so we've got Khotso on the line firstly. No, in fact, we'll get to Khotso just now. So by the way, no, let me just get to the voice notes once again. Sorry, these things happen on a live show. Things, we have plan A, plan B, plan C, and these things happen. So here's another about the African National Congress.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Peter here in Hasvata. Ashraf, in short, the ANC is not honest to the people, even to their alliances. Just like the guy explained now, before the elections, they went together and formed something solid, collectively, to face the elections, campaigning together. But after they failed, they were supposed to go to the alliances and say, guys, now we failed. What is the way forward? But they decided to...
Okay, that's one. Let's get to Khotso in Rustenburg. Hi, Khotso.
Hi, Ashraf, how are you?
I'm good indeed. Right, go ahead. What's your point?
Okay. Last time you were speaking you were talking about the COVID-19 monies that were not paid to essential workers during the COVID-19. The company that may have stolen the money from the employees.
Okay,
So then I phoned, but your producer told me that he will give me a chance to speak to you about that so that maybe you can get some information for us.
All right.
Okay. I'm today having that problem as we worked during COVID-19 as essentials, but we were not paid, yes, as I said. Now, they said to us they used our money to pay staffs that were not working, that were sitting at home. But according to the structure of the company, even if you were at home, you were working at home. And we didn't see any chance of them paying.
So wait, let me just push you. Who's not paying you? And I mean, and what else do you want us to find out? I mean, can you tell us more?
Okay, the point was government did pay some companies that were its employees were working during the COVID-19.
Right.
So the companies that got that money, some of them paid their workers, some didn't pay their workers.
Okay.
So today we are on a point of retrenchment at the very company that they said they used our monies to secure other people's jobs.
All right, I'll tell you what, I'm just a bit concerned about how long this will take. Let me do this. Let me put you back to Keys, my producer. Let's get some of the information from you and see if we can find out further questions, okay? Otherwise, we will not really know. Can we do that? All right? That's the way we can try and hopefully resolve it for your side. Let me see. We should be chatting. I want to play a clip from the ANC's deputy president. I want to just see if it's lined up right. So, we're talking about the 100 days of the Government of National Unity, and the ANC making it very clear it's not a celebration, it's a reflection. So either way, the ANC deputy president, Paul Mashatile, well, he's commented on the relationship of the party and the DA in Gauteng province, this at a time when they are celebrating and reflecting on 100 days of the Government of National Unity.
Helen Zille and Panyaza, well, I'm sure they will resolve those issues. As far as we are concerned, we said to the government of Gauteng, led by the ANC, if the DA doesn't want to work with you in Gauteng, leave them behind. It's not your problem. And they must not make it our problem nationally, because we are working well with them nationally. It's up to the DA to make sure they work well with our structures in the provinces. We want our structures to work with them, but our structures came to us, Gauteng came to us and say the DA is making impossible demands, and therefore we can't proceed. And we said to them, well, leave them behind. If they are not reasonable, go without them. But doesn't mean that we don't want to work with the DA. All I'm saying that all parties must be reasonable in what they want, in what we do, because the GNU can't survive if people come with unreasonable demands. So far it's surviving because all of us are mature, we are dealing with issues in a matured way, and it's going to be like that. We will finish the 5 years.
Okay, we'll finish the 5 years, but what does that mean? Assuming, for example, there's a break in relationship between the DA and the ANC, then what? Like, who does the ANC partner with now? Just for example, it's so complicated. And what about those who have benefited of a high profile, like Gayton McKenzie from the GNU? I mean, I'm just thinking, where would this all go? There's more comments which we'll play right after this.
The 2024 Health Excellence Awards, hosted by Cliniques Health Group and the South African Clinician Scientist Society, is calling for nominations. This is your chance to recognize exceptional doctors, specialists, and medical professionals who are making an impact. The celebration of the 4th Annual Health Excellence Awards will take place on 16 November 2024 at Emperor's Palace in Johannesburg. Visit www.healthexcellenceawards.co.za to enter your nomination before 20 October 2024.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
The Leone Stars believe if they raise their game, they will trouble Ivory Coast and secure essential 3 points. But the orange, white and green Giants say they are not the elephants by mistake. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the spectacular journey to Morocco, Sierra Leone versus Ivory Coast on Tuesday, 15 October at 6 p.m. Live everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, so that was the one. We've had the comment from Paul Mashatile, right? Let's get further comment from within the ANC, right? And in fact, we will do that in just a moment or so, right? I can tell you that I'd like to get your thoughts, certainly with regards to, this government of national unity that we speak about at its 100-day mark, where there's been, certainly in the last few weeks, and for me, it's taking longer than expected in terms of a apparent breakdown in relations between the senior partners. And how do you rectify that? Okay, I'm not talking about those who say to heck with the GNU. No, I'm talking about those that are committed to it. Practically, with statesmanship, how then do you rectify it? Now, the ANC's Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, also had a view on the alliance partners. Remember, we had chatted to the SACP representative earlier. You need to listen to Alex Mashela's podcast as well coming up. You'll listen to it now. In fact, it's available. But this is what Fikile Mbalula said.
And we'll hear from the party what do they mean that we're disrespecting them. Because there's nothing that has shown that we disrespect the party. We have been with the party from the beginning of the negotiations, and at the same time, when we analyzed and said that we have suffered a strategic setback, we're with them in the talks about talks, and we're with them when we constituted government. So it doesn't help to talk to your allies through the press. We have also gone to the NEC, analyzed the outcome of the elections, what it means, using data at our disposal. So we are ready to share that with the party. And politically, what this moment means to us, how we characterize it, and the GNU itself as a tactical intervention. There is often an accentuated verbosity about the GNU, that the GNU is something like as though we in the ANC love the GNU. This is produced by the moment. And we could have come to GNU, we could have come to Grand Coalition and all of that. This is not what we envisage. We did not struggle for a GNU. We don't understand at the conceptual level where we don't find each other. Because we did not struggle and campaign for a GNU or a Grand Coalition. We were campaigning for an outright majority, which we did not get. Okay? We did not get outright majority. So we can't be forced by other political parties. We make our own choices.
Okay, well, that has been said by many others to say the ANC always wanted a majority. They only have a GNU because the electorate all of us, and the majority certainly of people who voted did not vote for the ANC. They did, and they got their 50%, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But the flip side of that is that, okay, did they go the right route? You see, many have said, but in fact, they had the option of being partners with the EFF and the MK party. It would have given them the 50% plus to govern with them. On the other hand, the context of the MK party has got to also be seen that you have a former president who was effectively campaigning against his own party. Now, can you see how complicated that it really is complicated? Somebody one day is going to write a bestseller soon about life inside and life outside the national government, the GNU, inside and outside the GNU. Bongi Nkosi in Cape Town, hi.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the SFM.
Yeah, good to hear from you. Go ahead.
You see, there are people who are so obsessed with race. And I must say, Ashraf, that the GNU is a breath of fresh air, in the country. And many people really have welcomed it positively. But you have people like Solomon Baila, honestly, who's been a passenger on a gravy train of the ANC for the past 30 years, who's got a lot to say about GNU, but what contribution is he really making together with the SACP in our political discourse? I don't think there is any positive contribution that they are making. And in fact, if he feels so strongly against the GNU, why doesn't he recall his SACP colleagues who are serving in the executive of the GNU? So we must deal with this hypocrisy. People, are saying the ANC should have chosen MK and the EFF. Both the leaders of these parties are former members of the ANC, and they haven't given us anything different. So in other words, people are saying we should have chosen to have the same old ANC that hasn't brought any changes, to the people of South Africa. And the last point I want to make, Ashraf, is that I just heard the Deputy President speaking now about the unreasonableness of the DA in Gauteng. I think the ANC must also understand that being reasonable is not dancing according to their tune, because nobody won elections. And to be honest, the ANC in Gauteng, has been very arrogant, and they behave as if they won election when they didn't. So I think the sooner people really come to their senses about the situation in South Africa and the changes that we need, the better.
Well, you said a lot, and I concur with you. And I think maybe the big issue from an ANC point of view is, yes, they need to not be arrogant about the fact that they are the only party governing. That's one. Number two, the DA is also to understand that they have limitations, although they're a major party in the GNU, and they can't act as if they're the only party in town. That's also true. And then, as you mentioned, the spat between the SACP that we've discussed, as well as the Gauteng province, it doesn't all go well, certainly for the ANC. There are too many groupings within the ANC that are not agreeing with the ANC, and then the ANC itself is not agreeing with the DA, which all suggests like serious fractures within the government of national unity. On the other hand, there is a sense as well that this will continue because everybody feels that the options outside the GNU are, to borrow a much repeated phrase, too ghastly to contemplate. So, Bongi Nkosi, got your thoughts. Thank you for that. Let's get another opinion from Kandisa, right? Kandisa, hi.
Hi, Atlas, how are you?
I'm good indeed, right? You tell me, what's your point?
Look, Atlas, there's nothing wrong that SACP and Mapaile say. It's a political statement. When you are a leader, you have to take out a political statement so that you must be clear to the South Africans. Look, the issue here is not about GNU. The issue is DA. The background of DA, how DA is behaving. You see, even ANC did not get outright majority, but that party itself is wrong. For us, people, black people, you rather take the devil that you know in the GNU. The issue is not the GNU here, it's a DA. How can CCP go and apologize to Helen Zille? Helen Zille is not an alliance with ANC.
Well, okay, I hear you, right? We're going to move on just because of time. And by the way, just on that part, I mean, clearly it seems like often the DA itself also don't speak in one straight communication line, which is the essence of good corporate communications, right? But the point about the SACP is also important, which is like, seriously, what has the SACP brought to the ANC in the last few years or the last few elections? I mean, seriously speaking, in terms of clout and votes and in energy, do you not think that's been missing from the SACP? And I'm asking that in earnest about, like, I want to learn as well, and maybe you know better than you can certainly tell me. Let's get the news headlines. It's 4:30. Here's Madupi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and good afternoon. In your headlines, the civil society organization Water Can has blamed Gauteng's water woes on infrastructure failures in the province. The families of the 7 people shot and killed at Orange Farm on the south of Joburg say they are struggling to forgive the perpetrators. And Deputy Defense Minister Bantu Holomisa will represent South Africa at the African Defense Ministers Conference in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Those are your headlines. Greg will have your full update, 5 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N4 westbound in Pretoria has a tanker fire reported just west of the Ga-Rankuwa exit. The road's been closed. Bayes-Naudé Drive westbound in Risidale has a crash near Mimosa Road. Malibunga Drive westbound in Kayasand has a crash before Boundary Road. And on the N1 northbound in Pretoria, a crash reported near the R21 highway. In KZN, the M4 southbound has a crash near the Himalayas Road exit, and Blundell Road has roadworks reported with stop-go controls in place at the River Bridge south of Queensborough, so expect delays. In Cape Town, an update from Metro Rail. Due to strong winds, they're impacting power supply stations across the region, so some train lines are operating with plus 60-minute delays. Burwood Road in Claremont has a fallen tree reported at Newlands Road, so expect delays and diversions throughout the area. And Krombom Road eastbound in Rondebosch East is queuing towards Jan Smuts Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, to me, there's sport and there's arguments about sport. In the same way we talk about politics and arguments around politics.
Absolutely. And that's what we're starting with. The Court of Arbitration for Sport has thrown out Royal AM's request to have their FIFA ban overturned. The KZN side approached the tribunal in an effort to end their contractual dispute saga with striker Samir Nurkovic after the world governing body had ruled more than a year ago that the player should be paid 12 million rand. Now, Nurkovic has had his 2-year agreement with Royal AM terminated prematurely, and the Serbian international took the matter to Zurich. Royal AM have now entered a second successive domestic season without being able to register new players, and they were hoping that the CAS would rule in their favour following months of attempting to change the verdict. Elsewhere, in the meantime, the Nigerian Football Federation says that the team will fly the country's team back to the country today after alleged inhumane treatment in Libya ahead of a 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier. A formal complaint by Nigeria has also been sent to the Confederation of African Football. The Nigerian team have been held at an abandoned airport in Libya for more than 15 hours since their chartered flight landed on Sunday. And from my understanding, they didn't have food, they didn't have water, they had nothing. And the Nigerian embassy in Libya reportedly cannot intervene as they would need permission to do so from the Libyan government. And from player Victor Osimhen says that they will not play the match only if they take the game to a neutral ground. That's when they will consider playing the match. And we saw on social media how the players were just sleeping at this airport. I can imagine what it does to them psychologically, Ashraf, for you knowing that you're going to play and then you go through this first and then you still have to go and play an AFCON qualifier.
But it's rather bizarre. I mean, there's a whole lot of things we can break up here, right? One is the last thing, which is the threat that we will not play the game unless it goes to a neutral venue. Do you think CAF's going to listen to them?
I wonder.
Based upon what I know from them, It's not going to happen.
I wonder, I'm just waiting to see what CAF is actually going to say with regards to this treatment. But there was also a story that the Libyans were saying that Nigeria also treated their football team the very same way. But now they're saying they had nothing to do with what's happening right now and mistakes happen.
Well, I saw that one. So it's almost like this is like tit for tat to say, there's been both countries accusing each other of messing around with their players over a period. But I must tell you, and it's sad to say so, it's a problem that has occurred very, very often on the African continent. And one of the first examples of those with better memories than I have would remember that I think when Bafana first played against the Congo in a World Cup qualifier in Point Noir, right, if I'm not mistaken, we thought we'll be loved and fated because we are Mandela's nation. And oh my goodness, they gave us such a torrid time, right? All about trying to manipulate the fact that they'll make it uncomfortable so that you don't play well in the game. And I think we even lost that game 1-0, if I'm not mistaken, okay? If somebody knows better, they can tell me. So what I'm trying to say, this is ongoing on the African continent. And why should we tolerate it?
And what is CAF doing about it? Why are we still facing things like this? But we'll wait for word from the Confederation of African Football. Moving on to cricket, the Proteas women are still in a nervous wait to see if they'll progress to the semi-final of the ICC Women's T20 World Cup. The Proteas thumped Bangladesh by 7 wickets on Saturday, while the SA team climbed to top spot in Group B with 6 points. They will now hope that England beat West Indies in the final match of the group stages tomorrow. And if West Indies beat England, the Proteas must hope their net run rate is high enough to book their spot in the playoffs.
Golden Oldies will probably relax. I'm one of them. We'll probably just, make sure we rest and get ready as if we are going to go to that semi-final. I mean, there's no use you come here and you already got negativity, think more negative things and thoughts going on. But I think we might have a team activity because that's the most important, is to stay close to each other and stay a unit at the end of the day. I don't know. We'll probably watch that game as well, hopefully in a team room. And I won't say who we'll be supporting for, but we'll see what happens.
Tasman just talking about what they'll be doing while they wait to see if they made it through to the semi-finals. But still staying with cricket, a breathtaking display of power hitting from Brendan King and Evan Lewis propelled the West Indies to a commanding 5-wicket victory in the first T20 against Sri Lanka. The West Indies smashed the target of 180 with 5 balls in hand, taking a 1-0 lead in the 3-match series. The run chase began with fireworks as the duo of King and Lewis amassed 74 runs with a 6-over power play, putting Sri Lanka on the defence. And moving on to golf news, the Fortress Invitational, one of the richest golf tournaments in South Africa, is set to return for its 3rd edition, boasting an impressive prize fund of 2 million rand. Launched by the Sunshine Tour back in 2022 with an initial purse of 1.5 million rand. This annual tournament will take place at Glendower Golf Club from the 17th to the 20th of October, and over 120 golfers are expected to participate, showcasing a wealth of talent and experience on one of the country's top-ranked courses. And Sunshine Tour marketing manager Mcebi Simjali expressed his enthusiasm for the much-anticipated return of this popular event.
I'm very pleased. I think that anytime you can start building longevity in any sport, specifically with golf, it's a good thing because it gets the players feeling comfortable returning tournament. It gets the fans understanding that this is a tournament that is building equity, and it also helps the Sunshine Tour and Fortress brands also further entrench themselves within the mind of South African sports fans and specifically golf fans, for years to come. I think having the Fortress Invitational come back for a 3rd year now has really entrenched it as one of the Sunshine Tour's premier events. So we really are excited and happy that Fortress have committed so much to not only the growth of the Sunshine Tour, but also to the growth of golf in South Africa.
On that note, is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
By the way, I just want to tell you this. So, I play paddle. I haven't played in a month because I was abroad, right? Mm-hmm. So I played on Sunday for the very first time. But today I find with interest that Cristiano Ronaldo and what's his name? I think it's Delo, the guy who plays for... No, the Man United player, the right back. Is it Delo, right? Yes, it is. Yeah. Anyway, the two of them, Portugal won one of their Nations Cup games, and they celebrated by sort of mimicking a paddle stroke.
Interesting.
On the football field. If that doesn't tell you about how this crazy sport is growing, I don't know. Check it out on my Instagram feed. You'll see it. Yeah.
Will do.
Right, more sport in an hour.
And we went went on a water safari and Mom spotted a hippo and it said,
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed Dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king and the Zulu warriors chanting, Baye!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
The 2024 Health Excellence Awards, hosted by Cliniques Health Group and the South African Clinician Scientist Society, is calling for nominations. This is your chance to recognize exceptional doctors, specialists, and medical professionals who are making an impact. The celebration of the 4th Annual Health Excellence Awards will take place on 16 November 2024 at Emperor's Palace in Johannesburg. Visit www.healthexcellenceawards.co.za to enter your nomination before 20 October 2024.
The Warriors and the Brave Warriors want to demonstrate who are the real warriors when they meet at the battlefield in search of vital 3 points. This is the Southern African Derby of the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the thrilling journey to Morocco, Zimbabwe versus Namibia on Monday 14 October at 6 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, so after a weekend of no facts and figures around money, we certainly have it now with Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Good chatting to you as always. So we've got the usual local and global markets, but before that, some thoughts on the Calgro M3 interims. Tell me about that.
Afternoon to you and to the listeners. Yes, remember Calgro, the residential property developer and owner of Memorial Parks. Their revenue decreased by 26%, and that was due to reduced unit sales as consumers are constrained, and there were some delays when it comes to transfers. Units handed over down 27%, and the growth in gross margin to 29% was because of the strategic move to a higher mix of open market and non-public sector units, as well as project and product mix, which now benefits from historic land and infrastructure cost. Memorial Parks accounts for only 6% of the group revenue, and profit as headline earnings per share down 28%, and unfortunately the share price is down 10%. And as of the much awaited Chinese stimulus announcement on Saturday was broad but very light on detail. They pledged to significantly increase debt, but left market participants gazing on the overall size of the stimulus, and that's a vital detail needed by investors. And the inflation data released on Sunday underscored the need for further policy support to help the economy break out of deflation. And September exports and imports grew far less than expected, and the European Bank is now the center of attraction, as they'll be making a rate decision this Thursday, expected to cut by 25 basis points, and that will be a third cut for the year. And also earnings results in South Africa, and US retail sales numbers will be closely watched for indications on the strength of the economy and what could mean for interest rates. And oil prices are attempting to wipe out all last week's gains after China oil imports fell for the 5th month in a row, raising concerns about fuel demand as OPEC cut their 2024 and 2025 global oil demand growth view. Brent crude is down 1% at $77 a barrel. Yellow metal fell slightly as China's stimulus plan dims risk appetite while waiting for Fed officials' comments. It's down 0.2% at 2,650, and markets are trading in positive territory with local pulse up 0.2% led by our industrials. The rand unfortunately fell 0.8% against US dollar 17.54, 22.88 against the pound, and 19.14 against the euro.
Right. There we are. Thank you for that. We will certainly have another chat with you tomorrow. Makwe Masilela, is always good to connect with you. Another update, by the way, from the markets coming up at just after 5:30. So listen out for that. Right, let's talk about water. Let's talk about a water shortage. Let's talk about the water shortage in the Gauteng province in particular, and maybe very close to that around the cities of Johannesburg and surrounding areas. Right after this.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So it's interesting. We have with us Dr. Fidel Adam, who's the head of WaterCan. In fact, she's the executive manager at WaterCan. Fidel, appreciate your time as always. Thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf, and thank you for having me on your show, and hi to all your listeners.
Thank you. I tell you what, the pulse rate may be racing on this show, but the rate of water being pumped out in certain regions are going at a go slow, and that is usually problematic, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a concern, and the challenge is that, as you saw, the Joburg Water statement last week, which talked about leaks in 42 reservoirs, 42 of our 87 reservoirs. And I think that's part of the problem, is that the reservoirs cannot fill up to actually supply people with enough water. So you have these leaks. And then compounding that is the Rand Water statement that came out on the weekend.
Okay, so maybe just help us. I know last week we spoke to you, by the way, unrelated to this, around the issues around Hammanskraal. That's one issue, right? Let's talk about the Rand Water statement. What are they saying?
So the Rand Water is basically saying that the systems are constrained in terms of the amount of water. Now, we know that Rand Water has a license for a certain amount of water that they can abstract from the Vaal River system, right? And that has not been updated for many years, and there's a number of reasons for that. So one of the thoughts was that the Lesotho Highlands project phase 2 would be online now, and they would be able to get more water with more systems in place. But the Lesotho Highlands Water Project phase 2 is now delayed until 2029. So that creates kind of a stress on how much water Rand Water can abstract. But adding to that, if they're abstracting the water, but the municipalities, because of the high water losses, they need more water. But Rand Water is saying we don't have more water to give. And so that's the challenge. And they're also saying that with the increasing temperatures, and this is normal, every year when we get to this, hot summer, springtime, we have level 1 restrictions. So we have level 1 restrictions at the moment, and Rand Water was just trying to remind people that we need to be saving water, we need to be mindful about how we use water. But I think that the way that message was sent out created more fear and anxiety, actually.
So where does this leave then the consumer, the resident of the areas that are most affected? I mean, maybe just help us with, first of all, which areas are most affected by what may and may not happen as per the Rand Water communique?
Yes. So I think, from that statement, there's no specific areas, to be honest, Ashraf. That is a very generalized statement that's saying that the whole, that everybody needs to save water, this is the issue. What we then seeing, and this is unrelated to that statement, is the fact that we have a breakdown of infrastructure. Our water infrastructure has been failing, and we know that for a number of years. We have not spent enough on maintenance of our pipelines, of our reservoirs, and that's clearly coming home to roost now, as we see, right? So what we'll see is that there'll be localized areas at particular times when those reservoirs are not working or they're being closed. So, for example, today it could be Kensington, and tomorrow it could be, the Hurst Hill Reservoir, which affects you and myself. Then that could be a problem. So you have these intermittent water supplies across the cities at different times and different days. So there's no kind of system to it right now.
So, if I look at what's happened with load shedding and Eskom, and it's in no ways it's fixed, okay? But we've had something that was like undreamt of a few months ago, to say 200 days with no load shedding. It's crazy. What can we learn from that? I mean, we're talking power and we're talking about water, but the principles of maintenance and supply are the same, isn't it?
Yes, I think that it's very clear that the issues we experienced with power and with electricity was also linked to maintenance. It was linked to bigger power system issues, power station issues, and we're seeing similar things around water. Now, the thing is, you're dealing with an aging infrastructure. They haven't spent enough money. They've only allocated to fix, if I just tell you this, we have 12,000 kilometers of water pipes in the city of Joburg. Joburg Water has allocated to fix 77.7 or 77.8 kilometers in 5 years.
Sure. So let's get 77 versus 12,000.
Yes.
Which means as you fix, others will break down. It'll
They
even be
should
worse.
be fixing about 300 kilometers. Right? So there's a big shortfall, and there's a big kind of... So the first thing the city would say is they don't have money to do this. Now, we know that there's a municipal infrastructure grant that is provided by COCTA. And this year, City of Joburg actually gave money back. Like, I don't know the amount, I think it was about 100 and something million. But they gave that money back that they haven't spent. So what we're saying is that, yes, we have this issue. It is urgent. What needs to happen is a few things. We need to ring-fence the budget for water and sanitation infrastructure, because this is a challenge. It is a crisis in some respects. And so we need to ring-fence the money. But also there's another issue. I'm sorry, there's many issues, Asha. But I don't know if you saw the statement from the Department of Water and Sanitation, which said that there are numerous municipalities who have not paid their fees to the water entities and the water boards. What would result is that the water boards are ending up bankrupt and will not be able to provide their service. So we're saying that it is time now for national, provincial, local government to start speaking to each other. We need them to be able to say, okay, they're going to firstly ring-fence funding for infrastructure, but the second thing is perhaps national government needs to use the infrastructure grants to pay the entities or the water boards directly and kind of skip the municipality.
Either way, they all need to know there's a local election coming up soon, so they need to get the message quickly, because we, as the listeners and the consumers in this case, and the general residents of certain cities will not tolerate it any longer. I don't think so.
Absolutely.
Dr. Fidel Adam, appreciate your time. The executive manager at Water Can.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, so let's get this. Every Monday we have this feature around personal growth, and I mean, just taking a look at yourself and how you relate to the outside world and how you internalize those things. It's really important. Now, today, one of the issues that, goodness, I've never spoken about this, which is, what is a people pleaser? But very importantly, we all have inherent people pleasing or people pleaser habits. But the point is, how do you get over it? Because the sense is that these people pleaser habits often become very damaging to you and your goals. So I don't have the answers. Sharon Castle clearly has. Sharon is a lifestyle and wellness coach. I appreciate your time, Sharon. You're connected to the National Pulse.
Thank you so much. Well, this is such an interesting question, and you said that some people sort of have this innately in them. And really it boils down to one thing. People-pleasing comes from this belief that you're not good enough, that you don't have enough, that there's something that's missing. So you try to change your behavior or do things that you feel might get people to like you or acknowledge you or even to respect you. And what happens with that is the reverse actually happens, because when you are doing something that's out of alignment with who you are and you're not being authentic, you're not being real, people can pick that up. It's like walking into a shop and having a salesperson breathing down your neck, wanting you to buy something, and then you feel like it's like creepy and you want to get out of there. And eventually what happens to the people pleaser is resentment builds up, because they constantly go against their better nature or their wisdom or even their common sense and do things that they think will get this person to like or respect or acknowledge them. And that resentment eventually builds up into some form of behavior that makes the person who was receiving the people-pleasing action feel like that person is out of alignment. And then the relationship can break down. And this often happens with parents and, their adult children. Ask me, I have those. So you do things that you think they want, and then they end up abusing you, and then you end up resenting them, and the whole relationship falls apart. Really, at the end of the day, it's self-love.
So
if you like who you are, then
Yeah.
you won't do that.
Okay, but I mean, not everybody likes who they are. I mean, that's a given. So maybe there's two parts to that one, right?
Yeah.
We'll get to the like who they are just now. But firstly, in terms of the people pleasing, I mean, we're all in a situation. You can't live a life where there's antagonism all the time. You want to be in a happy
Yes.
space, right? I mean, I work
Right.
with a team of 4 or 5 people, and that's just the production team. Besides working with people listening to us on air, and you need to come to a situation of to borrow a phrase like a government of national unity, a relationship of national unity of sorts, right?
Yes.
But in doing that, you can't be overcritical all the time, and you can't be people pleasing all the time. How then do you get that balance right between not being the people pleaser, but certainly understanding you have to work with consensus with people, and therefore not be too critical?
Yeah, that's the way you put it is so good, because you must make an agreement with yourself first. You are the most important person in that relationship. So when you make an agreement with yourself to be real, to be truthful, and to be honest, even if it's going to slightly disrupt the person that you are dealing with, they will respect you for that. They may not like it immediately, but they'll sense that realness and that honesty and that authenticity. And that kind of gives, and I'm using air quotes, permission to the other person to do the same. Now you've got a real relationship. You have a real connection. Instead of one that makes you resentful and you start talking about behind people's backs. And that's never comfortable. So you've got to be comfortable in saying no now and again, and then take a moment before you respond and check in. Does this feel good? If it doesn't feel good to do it, you shouldn't do it. Now, I know in jobs there's certain things that you've got to do, but you don't have to do them going against everything that you believe to be true for yourself. You can say, what about this? The agreement with yourself means you can make some sort of conversation or connection with the person and say, how do we do this better, because this doesn't feel good? And that really has to come from you being real with yourself first.
So let's say you talk about being comfortable, and that sounds great in an ideal world where you just switch on a button and you're suddenly comfortable. The reality is people are not comfortable. So if you're not comfortable, not being the people pleaser, what is the steps you can advise people to move from being outright people pleaser to the detriment of yourself to being rather discerning about at times when you can please and at times you can't? And that links back to, if you are not comfortable with yourself, what's the trajectory, the pathway that you could suggest to people so they can become comfortable with themselves?
Well, you use the word discernment. That's a great word, because it is practicing. It's like trusting yourself to be discerning enough and to take a moment and say, this situation is not feeling good. And the feeling is the most important part. If it's not feeling good, that's a sign. That's a red flag for you to take a note that perhaps what it was that you would normally say, yes, okay, I'll do it or whatever, doesn't feel good. And in that moment, there's a pause and you can respond differently. And that's really how you take that first step. And what I mean by being comfortable, it's being comfortable with taking that pause, taking a moment and saying, hold on a minute, this doesn't feel right. Even although I've got into the habit of doing it, every time you take that pause and you take a moment, you will respond a little differently if it's not what you want to do. We all want to serve, we all want to help, but sometimes we override that, like IGS, the inner guidance system that says, this is not right for you this time. So there's always a conversation to be had, because we all see things differently. We all have our own discernment. And once you can get that right and other people can see that you are being who you really are, they will be who they really are as well. And it sounds so idealistic, but really it's the only way to go about it. The comfortableness is you being okay with you saying, I'm not so sure about this one. And it takes a little bit of practice, but you can do it.
Okay, well, you've left us with lots to consider, so I appreciate you giving up your time. Sharon Castle, can you be the king and queen of your castle? I mean, that's just the bottom line to all of this, right? Sharon is a lifestyle and wellness coach, reflecting on, how do you effectively dump your people pleaser habit as a lifestyle that people embrace to the detriment of themselves. You just consider all of that. In the meantime, some of the big issues we've got. Here's a comment about Gayton McKenzie.
Ashraf, good afternoon. This is Concrete Day in Bizana. Ashraf, Gayton McKenzie is working, that guy. He's working. Actually, GNU is working. I'm just passing Iduka now. if you're driving on R61 on the right hand side, it's a sort of like a stadium. It's like a stadium. There are so many soldiers here and the cars for soldiers. Yeah, thanks to GNU. Thanks GNU. It's my first time to see the cars like this. Soldiers cars, plenty of them, more than 100.
Oh my goodness, the GNU is working. By the way, I must tell you, I went to the airport on Saturday night to pick up my daughter who was in Ethiopia. So my wife and I went, and I don't know what it was, but and I'm talking about moving from Joburg going East Rand, so just off, just past you're on the double-decker highway, then you have Joburg City on your left-hand side. I've never seen a roadblock as big as that in my life in this country. I'm telling you that. There were probably 50, maybe 60 or 70 police cars alone, okay? And the amount of people they pulled off probably numbered like another 50, 60 just cars. So I've never seen a roadblock. It probably lasted about a kilometer long of just pure roadblock of the cars. I'm not even talking about the backlog of all of us, right? Just why, I don't know, but that probably is a good thing, isn't it? Let's get the news. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg Coase.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, concern over Gauteng's water woes and Tshwane MMCs is sworn in. Good day to you. Civil society organisation Watercan has blamed Gauteng's water woes on infrastructure failure in the province. This follows a warning by bulk water supplier Rand Water for municipalities to reduce water losses by 33% amid dwindling storage levels. The water utility says supply systems, including Rand Water reservoirs, are critically low, and the situation is expected to worsen with the ongoing heat wave. Some residents of Johannesburg woke up to dried taps. Watercan's Ferial Adam.
One of the key things with the water losses is just your infrastructure failure and the ailing infrastructure, and the municipality is not allocating enough budget yearly to maintain infrastructure. In Gauteng, losing 33% of our water is a lot of the water. So given the fact that we are dealing with climate change, we are dealing with a higher population than when Rand Water was given the license about 10 years ago. So there's obviously an increase in demand for water. So the system cannot deal with all of the issues that we have to deal with.
The swearing-in of new Tshwane mayoral committee members is taking place this afternoon in Pretoria. The committee was announced yesterday at a media briefing by the newly elected Tshwane mayor, Nasipa Moya. Monique Lewis reports.
The multi-party coalition comprises of the Action SA, the EFF, ANC and the Good Party. Amongst the portfolios appointed is that of the MMC for Housing and Settlements, now occupied by Aaron Maluleka from the ANC. Economic Development and Spatial Planning is Sarah Mabotza from the Good Party, while MMC for Health is Tegofatso Mashabela from the EFF, and Community and Safety is Councillor Kotsia from the Action SA. Monique Lewis, SABC News.
Families of the 7 people who were shot and killed at Orange Farm south of Johannesburg say they're struggling to forgive the perpetrators. 5 members of a family, a neighbour and a friend, were shot dead yesterday. The incident is alleged to have been sparked by a fight between a tavern owner and a patron. The owner allegedly followed the patron, who was a visitor at a nearby house, and on arrival fired shots, killing 7 people, including a 3-year-old child. He later turned the gun on himself. Family member Lorraine Maisha.
Even when we try to sleep, we are unable to sleep. I still see this man who shot people as I watched. Each time I close my eyes, I still see them all laying helplessly. Even the bullet holes on the shack, all I see is him. I hate him. I don't want to lie. I hate him.
The ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula says the bilateral meeting that was expected to take place today between the ANC and the SACP has been postponed again. Part of the meeting's agenda was the Government of National Unity, which the SACP has been highly critical of. Mbalula says another date will have to be decided on and has reiterated that the ANC has in no way disrespected its alliance partners regarding the GNU.
It's an unfortunate situation because today we're supposed to start with a bilateral meeting with the SACP. The GS of the Communist Party called me in the morning yesterday and asked for the postponement. because of the event that is going to take place at 6. We put it at 6 and we can't reverse it because we wanted to cater for this bilateral meeting. Now we will have to work out a date for the new bilateral.
The Deputy Defence Minister Bantu Holomisa will represent South Africa at the African Defence Ministers Conference in Ethiopia. Titaba Sotetsi reports.
The four-day conference starting from today aims to foster collaboration among African countries in the matter of defence. The focus will be on enhancing continental security frameworks to address emerging threats in Africa. Holomisa will represent Defence Minister Angie Motshekga and engage with other African defence ministers on issues such as counter-terrorism, peacekeeping and border security management, among others. South Africa's presence in this conference is to affirm its commitment to peace and stability on the continent.
The top story, water canners blame Gauteng's water woes on infrastructure failure in the province. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khus.
In sports this hour, the waiting game continues for Proteas women, and Nigeria set to boycott AFCON qualifier in Libya. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound and four-ways has a stationary truck reported after a Rivonia Road exit. The N1 northbound in Pretoria has a crash near the R21 highway. In Bedfordview, the N3 northbound has a truck crash reported near Galulis interchange. The N3 southbound is queuing through Galulis interchange towards Van Buren Road. That's due to a crash on the opposite carriageway, and the N12 R24 westbound queuing on both routes towards Galulis interchange. In KZN, the M4 southbound is where trucks lost its load near the Himalayas Road exit, and the M7 westbound in Pinetown has a stationary truck reported before the N3 highway. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. The M5 northbound is slow moving towards the N1 Koeberg interchange. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Racecourse Road, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So I don't know what you make of this. Do you celebrate 100 days of the GNU, or do you reflect on the 100 days? And I'm saying that because we talk about it as a celebration, but on the other hand, the ANC Secretary General himself, Fikile Mbalula, talks about it as a time of reflection. Either way, many sees it as a celebration, and others are saying, well, if it's a celebration, so what? Amongst them, the notable ones would be the South African Communist Party, and that's why they have not gone for this day of celebration, or what we may talk about as reflection. Either way, the ANC is certainly hosting an event to mark the 100 days of the Government of National Unity. So what is the nature of this coming together? What actually gets, reflected on, discussed, celebrated? Let's get the thoughts of the ANC national spokesperson. In fact, we'll get to our guest in just a moment. Let me just say this much. People have been asking me about some of the aspects of my trip overseas in the last few weeks, and I said when I get a chance, I'll mention that one. The one thing I can tell you now, London is undoubtedly one of the greatest cities in the world. And I mean like of all time. It's my fourth visit there. And every time I go to London, it has a vibe, it has an energy about the place. And it's also very multicultural now, but it's got an incredible history. And they've made the effort to protect the history down to the most minute points, which is just amazing. Like everything about London, on the one hand, talks about history and reflection and holding on to heritage. And on the other hand, he talks about modernity and understanding how to handle 10, 15 million people that are part of the greater London city every single day. It's a city that overall works. It really works. I know there's also been new, fresh investment into that city. I stayed at a place called Canary Wharf, and the Qatari government, in fact, has put in money into that entire region, redeveloped the whole Docklands area. But what I am saying, by and large, is traveling is a great education, right? And in my fourth trip to London, I'll repeat what I just said, that there are many cities that you must see, and they're not always about whether they're nice, because you need to learn from all these cities. For example, Cairo is hectic, but you need to see Cairo. It's part of your understanding of where we are as people, for example. But in terms of pure greatness, as a city that just works, that's got a vibe and an energy that very few other cities in the world have, London for me is up there with the very, very finest in the world. It's just something to consider. Okay, the big question is how do we get our cities, and I'm looking at the three big metros, Johannesburg, Cape Town and Durban, and then many of the others like Pretoria and Gqeberha in East London and Pietermaritzburg. How do we get to a situation where others will speak about those cities as amongst the great cities in the world? That's a challenge that maybe you and I have to say. If you've got some answers as to how we do just that, I would certainly like to know. Here's a question, Ashraf, a comment rather. I do celebrate 100 days of the GNU. The best is yet to come, and the rand is stronger. Forward GNU, forward Sizwe from Delft. Okay, there we are. Interesting one there. There's a range of voice notes as well. Let me play some of them. But one of the puzzling issues is the issues of water.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's nice to live in Cape Town where there's water every day. Yeah, because you can see Western Cape is the best province in South Africa. Water every day, no stories, no blaming anything past Cape Town.
Water every day. I hope we don't get a situation where we're short of water in Cape Town one day and I speak to you and say, oh, I got it wrong. But for now, I hear what you're saying, and you can't argue with that, can you? What about the ANC?
Ashraf Maswanga here. Yeah, I'd like to congratulate this ANC for having managed to lie to the masses like they have done before, and really claiming that, this positive result we are seeing with GNU is driven by them. They failed for the past 30 years. Joe.
And you're saying they lied. What did they lie about?
Afternoon, Ashraf. I just want to weigh in on the relationship between the DA and the ANC. Vis-a-vis the SACP, that it's not working, it's all this, that's bad. Look, they must come with a correct theorization and conceptualization of the current problem in South Africa. Is it race or is it class? Before we can take a position, because the way they are doing it, that seems to be confused whether the issue is race. We have a class issue in South Africa. Major from Kwatem.
Thank you. I think the biggest problem is inequality, really, because once if you're all equal, then the race doesn't matter, then neither does the class matter. The inequality gap is just far too wide in our country, and very little is being done to address it. And we also know there's this huge issue around hunger. And I just say that because I have an interest in this, because I know that the Social Justice Summit being hosted by Thuli Madonsela comes up in Cape Town over there, I think Thursday, Friday, right? And the big focus on hunger. It's the big issue in our country, hunger, poverty. And that, for the majority of people, if a person lives in an impoverished community in a township, they don't even see people from other races. The issue is not race, the issue is hunger. If you can understand what I'm saying, right? Let's talk about Nigeria.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, I'm laughing, when I hear this story of Nigerians boycotting they want to call it a game for poor travel arrangement as well as poor hospitality. They always treat us that way. Whenever we're going to Nigeria, we always have issues. Whenever we're going to Ghana, they make us travel long distances with buses, 3-4 hours on buses. So what is wrong now if they are getting the taste of their medicine? Like the other game, we were stranded for a long period of time, but we never complained. We went ahead and played. They must stop to being crybabies. If anything else, we are the ones who have a right to boycott games because we're treating all other countries fairly. But that's a joke. Nigerians, they must stop being crying babies.
But you don't want to boycott games. You want to play games. And I hear what you're saying about that. But it's not just Nigeria. In fact, the Libyans have got evidence. Well, they claim that they were treated also unfairly in the last time they visited Nigeria. Almost like ditto, right? The point is it's happened in so many countries. Like, why should we as Africans get down to that? Like, there's the game, but there's a game before the game. And the game before the game is how do you make it as difficult as possible for these guests to come to your country so that they are underprepared when they play the game of football, because winning that game is that important to them. Like, how do you win a World Cup when we're going to do that, undermining each other, as opposed to giving them the best service? And I think South Africa generally as a host nation, when we invite people to our country to play football, I think we do treat them well. But I'm just saying, it doesn't solve the problem when we say, well, they got what they deserve. Let's not ever get to that level. That's what I'm just saying, right? Okay, we should be chatting to an ANC spokesperson regarding the 100 days. We've had some connectivity issues, understandably so. But in the meantime, we get further comment from the ANC in a different source. Nomvula Nokonyane is the ANC's first Deputy Secretary General. And she's commented on the utterances of the Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, regarding the ANC's significant leader in the Gauteng province, Panyaza Lesufi.
Just on the issues that you have raised, the ANC has had an opportunity of meeting with the chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng, as well as having an appreciation of what was said and what was actually interpreted as his utterances. Where we are today, we can safely say the organization is not concerned about what has happened and what is evolving. You can see here today, the chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng will be leading a delegation, branches and structures of the ANC, to come and be part of the reflection, bringing volunteers. And I think for now, we would want to leave all matters to where we had left them last week, that there are no issues between Luthuli House, the National Executive Committee, and the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC in Gauteng. I, unfortunately, have not actually had an opportunity of picking up some insinuations that you are referring to. But for now, there are no organizational issues. If there are issues of personalities, of course, those are issues that we will have to manage so that then they don't flow into the life of the organization.
So there are no organizational issues, there are issues of personality. But I tell you what, personalities and their issues does feed into organizational implementation. It happens anywhere, okay? I spoke about London. Here's a comment.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, I agree with you that London is marvelous. Excellent. But one thing you're forgetting, that it's so splendid because of our gold and diamonds which built those cities. Us, we have nothing, absolutely nothing. We have all the resources, but we've got nothing. That is my taking today, Ashraf.
Well, I tell you what, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. We must not forget that fact, right? That a lot of it is, because of wealth that's been pilfered across from around the world in terms of whatever made Britain great. But here's the point that I think we need to remember. What Britain did is wrong, right? But there are many other people, even who have pilfered from their own countries, and many of them on the African continent. And when they pilfered, what have they done to put that same money back into their own countries? They haven't done that. So I'm certainly not there to support the British, not at all, okay? I'm talking about just as a city that just works. It's got magic. But in terms of the history, I would not support them. On the other hand, there's evidence of corruption in South Africa and on the African continent where leaders have had their hands on their money, their hands in the till, and they've then used it just to benefit their own families and not anybody else. And in fact, their countries have become poorer. Whereas what London has done or England has done is and I don't like the monarchy, let's put it that way, they have manufactured a monarchy system that is that people who actually go from around the world to go out and support and watch what the monarchy does. And that brings in tourism money that you can't believe. I mean, look at me, who's completely the anti-monarchy person who goes out there, stands outside Buckingham Palace just because that's Buckingham Palace. There's clearly something about how they do their things that you have to wonder, what can we learn from them?
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Slangu Semnikati have a big game plan to secure victory against neighbors Mozambique. But the Mamba say nothing will stop them from collecting maximum points. This is the Southern African derby of the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Experience the exciting journey to Morocco, Eswatini versus Mozambique on Monday 14 October at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
South African Airways is expanding in the DRC. We now offer direct flights from Johannesburg to Lubumbashi, the heart of the DRC's mining hub. Our convenient arrival time allows seamless connections to key regions like Ndola and the Copper Belt, opening up new growth opportunities. Traders can benefit from our generous baggage allowance, while SAA's superior aircraft belly capacity ensures your cargo reaches most parts of Congo on the same day. Book now at flysaa.com or contact your travel agent. South African Airways, connecting Africa to the world, one flight at a time.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
And by the way, just so linked to what I'm just talking about, today is Indigenous Peoples Day in particularly North America. And the point is that North Americans highlighting the fact they're not a historical people, there are injustices, and that people have been dispossessed. So when I went to Canada, every big event in Canada was started by talking about the First Nation, the original inhabitants of what is called Canada today. Let's talk about education in Gauteng in particular with regard to the marking system. The Gauteng Education MEC, Matume Chelwane, announced the introduction of a digitized marking system for the very first time. Now, the system is meant to assist in speeding up the matric exam marking process. That means people like me who want to mark, well, I'm out of a job. Okay, but maybe there's progress here. Gauteng Education spokesperson is Steve Mabona, and he joins me on the line to tell us more about it. Steve, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to all our listeners.
Thank you. So electronic marking, does that mean that the traditional marker is out of the loop regarding the matric exams?
No. We still on a pilot stage. We're not even doing many papers. We are sitting the process because we have realized that actually we are running short of markers. That's why you might have seen in our presentation that we start early. We do what we call early marking, starting on the 14th of November, while other papers will still be, written, and then we will have the one, which is the biggest one, which is the marking that we'll continue with. So by the time the minister wants to announce the results, we should be ready.
Okay, so when you say you're piloting, tell us more about what are you actually piloting?
No, we are piloting the e-marking because, as it were, we, to a certain extent, it's limited to a certain scale, and we're not taking the number when the specific that we've already had.
Okay, I think we're just losing Steve on just a bad line. Let's just see if we can Steve, let me just try you once again, if you can just sort of shift sideways. So we lost that last bit I was saying about in terms of what are you piloting and how are you piloting? Let's see if we can get your response.
No, I'm saying doing it on a smaller scale, and it's on identified papers, not all of them. So probably.
No, I think we're just losing that line. So let me just see if Keys can get Steve back on the line. If not, then we'll just get your thoughts about that, because I think it's an important issue. In the meantime, there's concern about Joburg Water.
Hi, Ashraf. It's Boo here. Listening to that lady on about the issue of water in Joburg just makes me so sorry for all the residents. Because you can see that these people are coming up with new excuses. To them, it's about coming up with the best excuse you've never come up with to excuse why people don't have water. Next week it should be something new, you know, and they outdo themselves all the time. Anyway, I will see in the local government elections.
Okay. Well, yes, I think, you know what? You know, there's no nice way to say this, okay? But when you have water problems and lighting problems and you get frustrated citizens, you can't expect them not to be but frustrated. And whatever the reasons are that are beyond their control, how can you expect them to just smile and say, you know, whatever, right? I mean, this is a problem. And we can, again, my daughter last week drove a car, potholes, two tires gone. And as I talk to you, I'm sure half the people listening will say, actually, that happened to us as well. So, like, we just have too many stories like this that reflects institutional breakdown. And we have to turn this around because this is our country. Okay, Steve Mabona back on the line, hopefully much better this time. So, Steve, we were speaking about the piloting, and you were talking about, I was asking you, what are you actually going to pilot this time, and how long then do we move from pilot to actual implementation?
No, you were saying probably your conventional markers will be done away with. I said, no. We are actually piloting this e-marking, and we are targeting certain papers, not all of them. But the majority of the papers will then be marked by our conventional markers, that, as it were, your educators that will normally do that. And I said we are doing in two folds. We do what we call early marking, which will start and push the work, and at the later stage will then take the second date and push the other scripts so that we are ready by the time the results are announced.
Okay, and I mean, what problems do you foresee here in piloting this?
No, we don't see problems because anything new, you can't start with a bang. You give it an opportunity to check on whether this process is working, and so that's what we've been doing in the pilot. So we should be in a position to, in the near future, to announce whether we're going to adopt that at its entirety or we'll still do both.
Yeah, I suppose you could also have a situation where maybe some types of papers could lend itself to a electronic marking, and maybe others can't. Like, I think opinions would be very different unless you can have an AI-related marker, isn't it?
We're exploring all avenues, but the challenges with our fourth industrial revolution. Anything introduced, you need to make sure that there's change management, people understand on how it works, so that we are not accused of wrong things or wrongdoing and all those things. Because what is critical here is the integrity. The integrity of this examination is quite key.
Absolutely. So when would you know that it's working? I mean, what sort of time frames have you set for yourself?
No, we should be in a position to announce in the near future. We didn't portal to a target date, but we just checking on the works around it, pros and cons, and we should be in a position to say we are adopting it and what are the subjects that are going to be confined to it.
Okay. What about, and I suppose at this point in time we're talking about Gauteng only, is this being piloted with a view to obviously going national, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. There are other provinces that are also doing it. I'm just not sure which one specifically because I'm confined in Gauteng. But I know there are 2 or 3 that are also doing it.
Okay. What about other countries, however, that have done this and you found they've now got a track record of success? Can you tell us about that?
Wow, you are pushing me now to national.
Well, global, actually. Global.
Yeah, you're pushing me to global, and I must be national for me to have a global picture. Yeah. I wouldn't have that.
No, understandably so. I mean, I'm just very curious about whether there are countries that have done this already and whether they're working well. But I mean, if you don't know, we'll find out later. I mean, that's one for the markers to decide whether to give you a mark or not a mark. You get my point. Yeah. Okay. Anything else you'd like to tell us around this issue?
No, we have normally problems of leaking of papers, so we have tightened up our security from the storage perspective, where we store them, how you access the storage, because sometimes there's a human element in the leaking. So do necessary research. We've got scans, CCTV cameras. We've got so many security features, and we will be doing the ceiling. We've escalated the ceiling not only one, but 3 layers. So it will be difficult for one just to access a paper. And when we move them to the distribution points, they will be escorted like money. And then at the distribution, again, escort to the schools. So you have 3 phases. And we don't do it way ahead of time. From the storage, you don't need a lot of time where a paper will be in a distribution point. Spend lesser time, and then it lands in the school. So that's what we're doing. And the scanners that we've procured for our exam centers, learners must be scanned to check whether they don't have any material that will assist them, like your cell phones, your watches. There's these watches that can be, can assist them as well. Anything that is not needed in an exam room, we'll make sure that we actually assist them, because once you are found cheating, you might miss the next 3 cycle of examinations, and which is detriment to your future. So we try to put an emphasis that learners must not cheat.
Okay, let's leave it at that, and we will certainly follow what happens with this pilot study really into digitizing the marking system for the exam. Steve Mabona, the Gauteng Education spokesperson, as always, good chatting to you, right? Let's get now to the news headlines. It's 5:30. Here's Greg Gross.
Headlines. The Weather Service has issued a warning for severe thunderstorms in the Gauteng province this evening. Watercan has blamed Gauteng's water woes on infrastructure failure. And South Africa says Israel's bombing of Lebanon is a serious violation of the territory of a sovereign state and a grave violation of international law. There's a full update at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in Fourways has a stationary truck reported after the Rivonia Road exit. The N3 southbound in Edenvale has a stationary truck reported at Modderfontein Road. The N3 northbound in Pettertu has a truck rush reported near Giluli's interchange. The M1 southbound queuing through Crown interchange towards Boysons. Santon Drive westbound is slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive, and Summit Road westbound in Midrand has a crash reported at Blue Hills. In KZN, the M4 southbound is where a truck has lost its load near the Himalayas Road exit. The N3 westbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The N2 northbound in Mdloti has a stationary vehicle reported after the Sabaya Drive exit, and the M7 westbound in Pinetown has a stationary truck reported before the N3 highway. In Cape Town, an update from Metro Rail that strong winds are impacting power supply stations across the region. Some train lines are operating with a 60 minutes plus delay. The N1 inbound queuing towards Brighton Road. The N2 outbound is slow moving towards the R300 highway. Baden-Powell Drive in Strandfontein has sand reported on the carriageway, so please proceed with caution. Okavango Road southbound in Kraaifontein has a crash reported at Langeberg, and Lower Church Street is closed over the N1 highway bridge due to a truck crash incident. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
So, to me, Temba, our producer, said, I can't believe you guys. You did not scream 5 times at Bafana Bafana won 5-0.
I mean, they deserve it.
So he's like saying, where's the screaming?
You know what? We are screaming inside our hearts.
No, Bafana Bafana! It doesn't happen every day. I mean, really.
Right? 5-0. But talking about Bafana Bafana, we start off with some bad news. Lyle Foster has been withdrawn from Bafana Bafana team for their away game against Congo tomorrow. Foster was injured a few days ago when the teams met, and he suffered a left knee injury, but not as severe as initially thought. The time is given for him to proper rehabilitate, and he didn't travel to Brazzaville with the team so that he can rejoin Burnley for an early rehabilitation. Meanwhile, Bafana head coach Hugo Bruce says that he knows that the upcoming AFCON qualifier against Congo will be far from easy. This is despite their win, with Bafana sitting second in Group K and level on 7 points with Uganda. A win against Congo would book their qualification for next year's tournament in Morocco with 2 games to spare. Then, as early as this week, Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, says that they are moving ahead together with the South African Football Association and its special member, the Premier Soccer League, on the implementation of the video assistant referee in South Africa. McKenzie revealed that as a government, they are ready to put down a deposit through sponsors to pay towards the VAR.
Yeah, I'm a man of timelines. It's very expensive. The president of SAFA is right. And we can't have SAFA alone carry the bill. You know, soccer makes all of us happy. This is a national team. We as government are willing, the government of national unity will definitely put in the bulk of that money together with sponsorship, together with SAFA themselves, and together with people that love football. We want our football to become better, and VAR can make it better. And our timelines is next week we are meeting. After that meeting, I do my atamai.
And you had said that because South Africa is a big country, not only in the region, but also on the continent. So it must be amongst those who are leading in the space.
No, 100%. We have no time to play here. We must lead the space, and we are leading the space. And next week, as I said to you, we are meeting SAFA. After next week, we are paying the first deposit. We are moving.
Elsewhere, FIFA will start negotiations with sports stakeholders on the transfer system after the European Union ruled that some of its aspects were unlawful. FIFA's regulations on the status and transfer of players say that a player who terminates a contract before its term without just cause is liable to pay compensation to the club, and where the player joins a new club, they will be jointly liable for payment for compensation. FIFA has acknowledged that rules would be amended as soon as possible. In rugby, former Wales and British Lions centre Jonathan Davids has announced his retirement, bringing the curtain down on a stellar career which brought 96 caps and 2 Six Nations Grand Slams. Davies left Welsh side Scarlets at the end of last season, having scored 55 tries in 2 spells with the region, as well as a distinguished Wales career which saw him play in 2 World Cups. Davies toured twice with the British and Irish Lions in 2013 and 2017 to New Zealand. In cricket, the Proteas women are still in a nervous wait to see if they will progress to the semi-final of the ICC Women's T20 World Cup. The Proteas thumped Bangladesh by 7 wickets on Saturday, while the SA team climbed to top spot in Group B with 6 points. They now hope that England beat West Indies in the final match of their group tomorrow. And if West Indies beat England, the Proteas must hope their net run rate is high enough to book their spot in the playoffs.
The oldies will probably relax. I'm one of them. We'll probably just, make sure we rest and get ready as if we are going to go to that semi-final. I mean, there's no use you come here and you already got more negative things and thoughts going on. But I think we might have a team activity because that's the most important, is to stay close to each other and stay a unit at the end of the day. I don't know. We'll probably watch that game as well, hopefully in the team room. And I won't say who we'll be supporting for, but we'll see what happens.
That's the voice of Tasman Bretts. Then in golf, the Fortress Invitational, which is one of the richest golf tournaments in South Africa, is set to return for its 3rd edition, boasting an impressive prize fund of 2 million rand. Over 120 golfers are expected to participate, showcasing a wealth of talent and experience on one of the country's top-ranked courses. And Sunshine Tour marketing manager Mcebisi Mjali expressed his enthusiasm for the much-anticipated return of this event.
I'm very pleased. I think that anytime you can start building longevity in any sport, specifically with golf, it's a good thing because it gets the players feeling comfortable returning tournament. It gets the fans understanding that this is a tournament that is building equity, and it also helps the Sunshine Tour and Fortress brands also further entrench themselves within the mind of South African sports fans and specifically golf fans, for years to come. I think having the Fortress Invitational come back for a 3rd year now has really entrenched it as one of the Sunshine Tour's premier events. So we really are excited and happy that Fortress have committed so much to not only the growth of the Sunshine Tour, but also to the growth of golf in South Africa.
On that note, it's a wrap from my side.
I'm still thinking about the sponsor, by the way. Who would be the most appropriate sponsor for VAR in the country?
That's a good question.
Okay, think about it.
I'll tell you tomorrow.
I did mention some opticians, but anyway, leave all that out. Seriously, who would be the most appropriate sponsor? If you're a brand specialist listening today and you say, holy, VAR in South African football would be sponsored, and we're looking for a sponsor, who would want to have their name attached to VAR in football in South Africa? Think about that. Right, more sport tomorrow when you give us the answers.
Amidst misinformation and disinformation, where can we find reliable news? Turn to radio, your trusted source for truthful updates. For over 3 decades, we've upheld integrity as a signatory to the BCCSA Broadcasting Code of Conduct. Count on us for news you can trust. Say no to fake news. Radio, keeping it real since day one. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters. Tune in, trust, and stay informed.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, as always, that show is hosted by Jimmy Moya. Jimmy, good chatting to you as always. Let's start with what's moving markets today.
Good evening, Ashraf. Good evening to our listeners. It's been another interesting week, or an interesting start to the week, rather. We've had some data that's come out last week. If you remember, we ended off Friday saying that we've got a couple of data points that we're going to be focusing on this week, mostly inflation-related, and we started to see producer price inflation data out of China. We are expecting, of course, CPI from the likes of South Africa, the UK, and the Eurozone later this week. But what we're focusing on the show today is we're going to be taking a look at Calgro M3's results. They're giving us a 6-month half-yearly update for the first half of their year. We're going to speak to their CEO around that and try and make sense of that. Then we've got a conversation with a company called The Lamp House around an innovative solution in the lighting space that they are providing to cannabis farmers in South Africa, and why their solutions are probably best for cannabis farmers that are looking at indoor cultivation. Then we've also got a conversation as part of our Personal Finance Mondays on dealing with, or rather financial planning when dealing with a terminal illness. And then as part of the reflections you've been going through throughout your show and throughout the day on SAFM as well, we're going to be reflecting on the life and times of the late Tito Mboweni. We're going to be speaking to the CEO of the Black Business Council, Khanki Matabane, around that, as well as getting the thoughts of another well-known journalist who's worked with former Minister Mboweni in the past, and just getting a sense of the impact that the former or the late minister had on the economy and on the rand and on everything that contributed towards business in his various capacities. As you said earlier, he certainly was a minister and a half. Before we get to that, the markets have been moving. They've been responding to some of these data points that have been coming out over the weekend and into this week. Hong Kong markets in Asia were the only markets that were in the red. Chinese markets were in the green, some 2%. The Nikkei in Tokyo was in the green as well. The ASX in Sydney was in the green. European markets were all in the green, with the DAX leading the pack there, 0.2% in the green, whilst the FTSE and the CAC in France were up 0.25% each there. Our own local markets saw almost 0.33% increase in the all share and the top 40. Industrials leading the charge there, 0.45% up on industrials, 0.25% to the green on financial stocks. Resources finishing flat, but we'll take flat better than in the red, although they were slightly in the red. I mean, 1 basis point in the red can be considered flat at this point. The rand giving back quite some bit of gains against all of the major currencies. 17.54 against the dollar. 1 British pound will cost you 22 rand 90. 1 euro 19 rand and 14 cents. 1 Australian dollar still below 12 rand, 11 rand and 79 cents. The Brent crude price, when we're looking at commodities pricing, is holding below that $80 level, coming back down nicely to $77 a barrel at the moment. The gold price, $2,647 odd an ounce. The platinum price, just under $1,000, $999 an ounce. I'm sure it'll touch over $1,000 throughout the rest of this afternoon. The palladium price, $1,030. And for those watching cryptos, Bitcoin, $66,000 a coin. And if we're looking at that in South African rands, that's around just over 1 million, just under 1,100,000. So crypto's moving well, everything else moving well. It's a good start to the week. Hopefully the momentum can continue throughout the rest of the week.
Okay, and talking about good starts, what about a good ending? And tell me about a living will.
That's quite interesting. So we're going to be looking at this as part of our personal finance segment, but effectively a living will is a directive that you give separate to your written will that governs how medical practitioners and your family should treat you in the event that you are alive but unable to communicate. So some people might go into a coma, some people might be unable to verbally communicate their wishes, or might require the assistance of things like an artificial life support machine, and you can put a living will in place specifically for that says this is how you treat me in the event that I am alive but unable to communicate and unable to make my own decisions. Interestingly enough, there's also a digital will that deals with how your social media profiles, amongst other things, need to be handled. But we'll look at that another time.
Okay, got that. Yeah, one step at a time. Absolutely. Well, thanks for that. Enjoy your show coming up 6 to 7, as always, with the SAFM Market Update, right? Okay, we're going to take your calls, and then we'll have a feature, what we always do, called Winning, after this.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, so let's get to some of your thoughts on some of the issues we've been talking about. David in Uppington High.
Hi, Ashraf. How are you?
Yeah, indeed. Go ahead. I'm well. Go ahead. Your point?
All right. Ashraf, I wanted to comment on this issue of this. Let me say it's a public debate or a public split between the SACP and the African National Congress, or some of the members of the African National Congress. It's a bit unfortunate, Ashraf, that because we lost the elections as the ANC, and then you find that some of the comrades in the African National Congress are starting to question the credentials of the SACP, the role that it played during the struggles of the African National Congress, and their contribution in the African National Congress. But if you can check, Ashraf, when the ANC was winning overwhelmingly in provinces and nationally, there were no such questions. And I think some of these comrades need to be sort of, they need to be sort of, their views needs to be checked by the center of the African National Congress that is operating via the Office of the Secretary General, which is Fikile Mbalula. Because I'm disturbed as a member of the African National Congress that comrades are going to sort of throw stones at each other as if the SACP has not been part of parcel of the African National
Okay, well, they're already throwing stones at each other. It's very clear. You know, you don't have to see a stone to call it a stone throwing anything. David, I get your point. It's clear. There's dissension. In the ANC, as there has been dissension. Well, I mean, Jacob Zuma is a former ANC member. He's not there anymore. And there are many other examples like that. So it repeats every time. The question is what happens next with the SACP? Can they go it alone? In fact, can they survive without the African National Congress and still call themselves the South African Communist Party? David, thanks for that. Sello in Mokopane High.
Thank you, Ashraf, for taking my call. Ashraf, you know that lady you was talking to about water in Joburg?
Yeah, Dr. Ferial Adam, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. Look, it is happening every year. I'm talking about people sending money to the government. And I think there's a lack of talk about that issue, Ashraf, because most departments send money that's supposed to work for the people. They send it back each and every year. And it's not millions, it's billions if we combine it to all 9 provinces. And then no one is held accountable for not using that was supposed to be used to better people's life. I think we should look into this proposal of mine, Ashraf, because we have been let down maybe by the director generals or the manager of departments who are just spending this money back willy-nilly every year, and then no one is held accountable.
Well, I think you're right. The one thing is corruption, where there's an over-expenditure and unaudited expenditure. The other is straight corruption. And the third one is no corruption, but money not spent, which is also problematic because that then is a denial of service delivery. Absolutely. Got that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashraf.
Thank you
Please
so
look
much.
into that with your
Right.
team. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Naeem Peer is saying, Ashraf, crunch the numbers. The ANC can survive with without the DA, I think. They will probably need the EFF. There's a bit of a typo, I think, in your comment. And then saying, Ashraf, check a 60 for VAR. Thank you. Well, there you are. Ask the question, who would be the perfect sponsor for VAR for South African football, right? Okay, there are certainly more comments. I'll maybe pick up one or two more voice notes if we have. Here's one on the South African National Defence Force.
The ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula.
Hi, Ashraf. I just want to respond to the guy who says he's driving past Idutya and that the GNU is working. The SANDF presence that side has got nothing to do with the extortions or crime related. They had a career expo day for schools in and around that area so that school leavers can take up careers in the SANDF. So let's not always just take everything and give praise where there's no praise to be given. Nothing about that is about the GNU. That is just a career expo for children. Thanks.
And just like that, you've spoiled his fun. I get your point. Yeah, look, I think you're right. Sometimes we don't know, and we think it's like, oh, this is it. Oh, it must be GNU. Sometimes things are planned. Sometimes things are planned even by the ANC on their own, and we only see the benefits of it 1 year later, even though there's a GNU. So it can't even be the GNU. It could be the ANC from before. You just don't know this. And at municipal level, I understand, for example, I was talking to someone of the city of Joburg, that some of the things were planned under ANC control that the DA then implemented, which looked like the DA were doing a great job, and then things change and the ANC has Al Jamal and it all gets very, very blurred because none of these things happen in 1 week. They take a while before implementation, right? Okay, let's talk about a school that certainly celebrates winning in many ways, the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls. We'll talk about them after this.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
So huge focus on winning, huge focus on Teachers Month. We certainly want to talk about champions and people who are best in class and who champion great causes, but teachers amongst them, and we've had some really good chats with teachers. But we continue with that because my guest today is Michelle Williams, who's the head of academics at the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls. Michelle, appreciate your time, and you're now live on the National Pulse.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Ashraf. Lovely to chat with you and to speak to your lovely listeners as well.
Absolutely. Well, of course, we're talking to you because we want to celebrate, winning in various forms, and understand that, your academy has had a graduation record of 90% plus over the years, and
yes,
that I understand is quite formidable. Is that really, meaning is it that good, or do others even do better than 90%? I'm talking about other schools too.
Ashraf, we really do well, and it is really good to have a consistently excellent pass rate of over 90%. I think for the last few years, I can actually remember 100% pass rate at our school, and also 100% bachelor's pass rate. So that is something phenomenal, but we don't stand alone, as you say. There are pockets of excellence throughout South Africa's schools, pockets of excellence stemming from teachers and managers who are committed to improving the lot of all South Africans through educating our children. And I think Teachers Month, as you said earlier, is just the time to absolutely celebrate those phenomenal individuals and what they keep on doing day by day.
Let's then talk about, maybe the unique features of your school in terms of what sets it apart, besides the fact that it's got the name of Oprah Winfrey as the title of the school, which is pretty obvious to me, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I think, Ashraf, we are very fortunate to have a founder and a benefactor of Miss Winfrey's nature. But at the end of the day, OLAG, the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy, is a school. It's a school where we are committed to ensuring that our learners leave school, and not just with a matric pass rate. I think that's one of the things that we're doing really well. We speak at OLAG about not preparing the pathway for the child to take. but preparing a child for the pathway. So leaving school is tough for any student, and we know that facing the battles of funding of university, the jumping between school and university. So I think one of the things that we're really doing well is concentrating on ensuring that when our girls leave school with a good set of results to set them up to entering university, but we present them with the tools that they need to excel beyond university. And I think that is something that we really need to focus on in South Africa. Schooling doesn't stop at the end of matric. That's the beginning. What are we doing to ensure that young people have a future that's going to enable them to be great money earners, entrepreneurs, professionals in the country?
So then maybe help us and tell us what is it that you are doing, because I think to pass matric would be I think my understanding would be like the absolute minimum you'd expect them to do, and then at your level with your school and that support of Oprah Winfrey, you'd expect them to all to be able to get into universities as well, right? So what then are you doing? And maybe share those insights in terms of what sets the learners apart, so they don't just pass matric and get to college or higher education, but then become captains or champions in their own industries thereafter. Yeah. So we don't just focus on academics, Ashraf. For us, it's about a well-rounded individual. And so we have a wellness department at school, social workers, educational psychologists, and a team that ensures that every child has the best potential to succeed. So we develop individual learning plans when somebody's not doing the best they can, so that they actually learn how they best learn. So we really assist them to learn how to learn. We pay a lot of attention to mental health issues and ensuring that that's not something that's just brushed under the carpet. I mean, we see it all over South Africa's teenagers fighting with mental health. We actually take that head on. And then something that's really possibly quite unique to our academy in South Africa is that we look at the impacts of trauma on a child's life as they're growing up. And we realize that trauma is going to affect our ability to learn and to affect our ability to be taught as we grow up. So we train our teachers in what we call the trauma-informed model of education, so that we're aware of what our children have been through before they come to OLAG, and in fact what 90% of the country's children have been through before they go to school, and that you can't push aside the fact that a child has seen an abusive father, has suffered bereavements, is not fed before he or she comes to school. And that creates a trauma. And it's very hard to go to school and actually learn and study under those conditions. So we pay a lot of attention to the impact of trauma. We train our staff and we train our girls how to deal with that trauma as well and its lasting impacts. How easy is it to get into your school?
It's not easy, I think. But we search far and wide, and we look for young girls who are farthest from opportunity. So we look for the girls who need that break. We look for the girls who need to get out of that cycle of poverty. They need to have they need to show academic potential. So we do a range of tests and a range of entrance exams with them. And then, look, they're 12 and 13 when we test them. So nobody's really able to show that you're a leader at that age. But we ask questions that attempt to dig into how a child could show that she will become a leader or show leadership potential. And so once those criteria are filled, we narrow it down and take 66 girls a year.
And by the way, somebody's asking a question, Langa, saying, ask your guest whether OLAG, that's the Oprah Winfrey School, right, has stopped their public bursary process.
Sorry, can you repeat that one? I didn't get it.
Ask whether the school, has stopped their public bursary process.
You mean that we're stopping to fund children? Absolutely not. We take in children on full bursary. Our girls are fully subsidized. Tuition, transport, uniform, boarding school, etc. every year. So no, we have not stopped recruiting and we have not stopped offering the bursary at all. We continue to recruit every year.
And, outside of the name attached to the school of Oprah Winfrey and maybe obviously funding,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How important is Oprah Winfrey to the school in terms of what she has achieved globally, and how to what level has that impacted the school learners themselves?
Well, Miss Winfrey is an example for any woman anywhere, I think for any person anywhere. And her story and her example are a huge impact on the girls. But she doesn't just stop there. She doesn't just pay and leave. She actually offers, when our matrics leave at the end of, every matric year, she offers them what she calls Life 101 lessons, which she does online with them, and just gives them tips and hints on how to be strong. And she calls a spade a spade. Miss Winfrey is a formidable and phenomenal woman, and the girls learn from her. And we really are grateful for that as well, because it shows a benefactor who's committed and involved in where she puts her money, where she puts her mouth, where she puts her money.
Okay.
So we turn it the other way around. Yeah.
Good way to end. Of course, we are talking about winners, and she clearly is a winner, and her winning has impacted on your school and therefore impacted on learners in our country. So good chatting to you, and much appreciate your time, Michelle Williams.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Ashraf. Thank you.
There you are. Michelle Williams is the head of academy at the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls. Right, that's the show. We'll do it again tomorrow. It's always called The National Pulse, and perhaps you can answer it yourself. What's your pulse rate like right now? Think about that. Let's get the news. It's 6 o'clock. Here's Greg Hose.
Thank you again, Ashraf. In this news update, thunderstorm warning for Gauteng and one suspect killed in Joburg shootout. Good evening. The Weather Service has issued a warning for severe thunderstorms in Gauteng this evening. This follows an intense heat wave that gripped the region over the weekend. According to forecaster Celeste Fourie, temperatures have started to drop in some areas, bringing relief from the scorching heat. However, Fourie warns